Okay, I'm back. Getting things set up. So let me figure that out. One sec. Sorry about the technical difficulties. All right. Got that on the screen. Uh yeah, that was fun. And by fun, I mean aggravating. Extremely aggravating. Um so I think I rewound about to the point where the medical examiner started. I don't know exactly when my feed died, so I'm just going to get started at the beginning of this witness. So, once again, sorry about the technical difficulties. Thanks for coming back, Static.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. All right, then the statement call its next witness.
Call Dr. Linda Bitzricki.
All right, good afternoon, Dr. Bitzricki. If you would please make your way to the witness stand, which is to my right, up one riser. When you get there, please remain standing, raise your right hand, and my clerk, Teresa, who's on my left, will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. First thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record and spell.
That's it, Steve. You
Linda,
got me.
Lynda, Biedrzycki,
And
Bied,
can't pull it up on the
Rzy,
screen, but your last comment, Steve,
Go ahead,
on the
witness.
dead
Thank you.
stream
Dr. Bitzricki,
about
how are
needing
you
to
employed?
quickly bring back the
I'm the
death
medical
penalty.
examiner for Waukesha
That would be an
County.
ex post
How long have you been the
facto law,
medical examiner
which
for
would
Waukesha County?
actually
About
be
25 years.
unconstitutional.
And can you briefly describe for the jury your
So
education and
future
training that you
parade
obtained prior to becoming
massacres
the
could
medical
face
examiner?
that as the
Yes.
penalty, but not
I
Mr.
went to medical
Brooks.
school at the Medical College of Wisconsin. I did an internship in internal medicine. Then I did general pathology training, which is anatomic study of tissues, and clinical, which is laboratory medicine. 4 years of that at several different
I
places.
figured you'd know,
including the
Steve,
Medical College
but
of Wisconsin, University
someone
of
for some reason
California,
might
and
be
William
watching
Beaumont
this
Hospital.
7
I did a
years from now.
fellowship in forensic
So
pathology, which is the study of
better
trauma
just
and
put it
neuro
out there.
medicine in Detroit at Wayne County. And I did a year of cardiac pathology at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston.
And as I was trying to say,
Direct
when
your
I cut out,
attention
she
to
seems
November
eminently
22nd,
qualified.
2021. Did you perform an autopsy on a Tamara Durand?
I did.
And did you prepare as a result of the
And that's
autopsy that you
considerably
performed the
before
autopsy
the
protocol?
U.S. had
Yes.
its
Did you
temporary
also prepare a diagram for court in order to
abolition of the
summarize your
death
findings from your
penalty.
autopsy protocol?
I did.
In front of you, you should have State's Exhibit number 59, which is the autopsy protocol.
I guess they would have
for Tamara
still been
Durand.
doing
Yes, do you
hanging
see that? Okay, and then I'm
when
going to
they
show
abolished
in front
it.
of you Exhibit 166. It will be on the screen in front of you shortly.
Of course, the last guillotine execution in France happened after
Ma'am,
Star
looking at the
Wars
screen
came
in front
out.
of you, is that your diagram that you prepared for testimony today, which shows your summary of the autopsy protocol, the injuries to Ms. Durand?
It is.
Can you describe for the jury, well, first of all, when did you perform the autopsy on Ms. Durand?
On November 23rd.
Well, that's
And were
2
you
days
aware that
later,
this was
so
as
it
a
doesn't
result
count.
of an incident that occurred in downtown Waukesha on November 21st, 2021?
Absolutely.
Overruled. Her answer may stand.
Did you go to the scene on November 21st, 2021?
I was there.
Okay. What were your findings with regard to Ms. Durand?
She was
She had
dead.
two groups of injuries, I like to say. One is from the impact of the car with the body, and these injuries include the marks
And then
on
the
her
other group
hips
would
that you
be
can see on
her
the
impact with the
posterior.
ground, I would
Just gonna ask the
imagine.
Court, I apologize, permission to admit Exhibit 166 and 59 into evidence and permission to publish 166.
Objection.
Why?
The objection is noted. It is overruled. Exhibits 59 and
But that's
166
unfair
are both
bias.
received. Permission to publish.
How dare the court
166
not
is granted.
sustain his objections?
I apologize, if you can start over with that testimony, they didn't have the diagram in front of them.
There are two groups of injuries, which is typical in a pedestrian injury. One is from the impact of the car with the body.
But hers
And the
isn't color
external
coded like
evidence
the
of that
previous
are the
medical
marks on the back
examiner.
of her hips, which are indicated, their heights between 34 and 38 inches.
That's
The,
about bumper
abrasions
or
and
hood
bruises,
height.
the red and blue marks. And those points of contact resulted in fractures of the pelvis on the right, which is
Ow.
indicated with green or
Ow.
dark lines across the pelvis on the skeleton picture. So the car struck her hip, broke her pelvis. The other injuries that are characteristic of pedestrian injuries are the small abrasions on her toes on the right. You see little red marks on the toes. She did not have the shoe on the right foot. The impact of the car with the body
Knocked her
pulls
shoes
the
off.
foot out of the shoe. This is very characteristic of a pedestrian injury because of the force and velocity of that impact. The second group of injuries
She's a good
is
witness,
when the person strikes the ground after that
unsurprisingly.
impact. And that's reflected by the laceration, a red mark on the back of her head, and then reflected by a line on the skeleton diagram across the skull, which is a fracture from ear to ear at the base of the skull.
Oh, that's
And two
bad.
fractures in the occipital area or back of the head, which you see in the posterior skeleton, which extend basically to the base of the spinal cord. Internally, corresponding to that impact with the ground, there was subarachnoid hemorrhage or hemorrhage covering the brain, and also a tear at the level of the brainstem from that impact.
Oh,
Also, from the ground contact are multiple rib fractures. On the left, they were the upper ribs. There's little marks near the scapula on the left, and mid ribs on the right. You can see the little marks there. And as a result of the impact that caused the fractures, there were also contusions of the lung bilaterally on the inside, and hemorrhage we call retroperitoneal hemorrhage, which is the area around the kidney on the right side. So the two groups of blood trauma.
And ma'am, I'm going to give you a pointer. I think it's hard maybe for the jury. I'm having a hard time seeing some of the dots
Okay.
on the skeletal.
they are much smaller.
See it is
Overruled.
grounds for the overrule.
Because it wasn't a proper objection.
Relevant.
Again, if you can just briefly describe what you just testified to, or briefly point to what you testified to.
Objection. Ask and answer.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Okay. So the first type of injury from the car, the skeletal.
It would have been better
fractures of
for them
pelvis
to
here, and the external
have
marks
her
here at the
be more
heights
clear with
that
the
I've
exhibit,
indicated from the hood of.
because
the
it is
vehicle.
hard to see.
The toes aren't seen at this time. We could bring them up right here. On the top of the toes, when they're lifted out of the shoe, there's often scraping, and that's what you'll see. Then the second group of injuries from the contact with the ground, if you can go down now, is a laceration to the back of the head from contact with the ground, a fracture across the base of the skull, ear to ear, fractures to the back of the head on the right and the left, and internally subarachnoid hemorrhage and the brainstem tear. In the chest, fractures here, ribs 3 and 4, and 5 and 6 on this side, with also contusions to the lungs, pulmonary contusions bilaterally, and retroperitoneal hemorrhage, or hemorrhage in the soft tissue around the kidney area. And just because it's flipped, this kidney area, the right kidney, is in this area of the skeleton, right above the areas of the fractures of the pelvis.
You have measurements on the third diagram from the left-hand side. What is the significance of those measurements? You had
That's
talked about the height of the
bumper
car.
height, hood
Did you
height.
see the suspect vehicle, or did you go to look at the suspect vehicle in this case?
Yes, I did.
Overruled.
It's not
She may answer.
leading.
Go ahead.
I did. On November 23rd, I went to Fleet in the county complex where the car was being held. And I examined the car, looking for points of contact between the car and the pedestrians. And I also looked at the configuration of the vehicle, like the height of the hood, what the wheels look like, what the tires look like, where the bumper was, where the damage was, and took multiple pictures.
And with the observations that you made on the third diagram from the left and those measurements, that would be consistent with the measurements taken of the hood height of the suspect vehicle?
Yes, it's typical of the more SUV type of configuration of a car. I mean, a very low sports car would have the hood would be low and the bumper, and if a bumper protrudes, then the bumper might be the leading edge.
Sports car might take out your
SUVs have
knees
kind of a
instead of your
flat
hips,
front
like
and a higher
SUV.
hood. The hood that I measured and the vehicle was damaged was 42 centimeters, but that's only at one point because the configuration of the hood had different shapes as the metal was curved over the wheel well and so forth. So these measurements, 38 and a half, 37.
She's going old
42
school,
are
using the
pretty good
actual
for the height
pointer.
of a SUV type vehicle at the point of contact at the pelvis.
Thank you. You may have a seat. Ma'am, can you describe for the jury the fatal injuries that were suffered by Mr. Rand?
The head injuries, the brainstem injury was quite severe.
That would do it.
That would alone be fatal. The pulmonary injuries and the rib fractures could also alone be fatal, causing
You can't
respiratory
breathe.
compromise. And the pelvic injuries could alone be fatal, causing hemorrhage. So
You break
she
your
died of
pelvis,
multiple blood
that there's
trauma,
major
but,
arteries running
each
through.
area of injury
right
was
next to
quite
your
severe
pelvis.
in and of itself.
Would
It,
that be consistent
it catches
with
the
her
top
being
of the
struck by
femoral
a
artery
moving
and you're
SUV
dead.
weighing in excess of 3,300 pounds?
Absolutely.
It's not hearsay.
It's overruled. She may answer.
It's typical of a pedestrian injury. It's typical of an injury with a SUV.
And it's already in
configuration.
evidence that the
And the
SUV
speed
weighed about
would be,
3,300
at least
pounds.
considerable because of the momentum which resulted in these severe injuries.
When you say the speed would need to be considerable, what does that mean?
I will explain. Injuries
A love
are
tap won't
proportional
do
to
it.
the energy delivered, kinetic energy. Kinetic energy.
Uh-oh, she's
the
getting back
formula
into Newton.
is 1/2 times mass. Mass would be the 3,300 pounds times velocity squared. So velocity is like really critical. So if you look at
25 squared is a whole lot
bigger
bigger than 20 squared, which is a whole lot bigger than 2 squared.
It's not when speed increases, injuries
It-
increase that
it's
way. Injuries
exponential.
increase like this because velocity is such an important part of the equation.
Thank you. Moving next to the autopsy that you performed on Jane Kulik. I would direct your attention to State's Exhibit number 61.
Yes,
And also I'm going to project in front of you State's Exhibit 167, which is the diagram.
I wonder if
believe,
these
that
medical
you,
examiners, did they state
created
they're from different hospitals?
to assist in the
Because
testimony today.
I know
yes.
people were brought to multiple hospitals. Because there was Children's Hospital, there
Let
was
me know when you see
Memorial
that diagram.
Hospital.
I see it.
Um,
And
can't-
does that
can't remember
accurately
the
depict
third,
the findings that you made in your autopsy protocol?
Yes,
I would ask the court to admit State's Exhibit 61 and admit and publish 167.
Where's 61? Objection, where's 61?
You should have that. It's not been on the screen. It was provided to you previously.
hard
That'd be
copy,
the
hard
autopsy
copy.
protocol for Jane
Look for the
Kulik.
paper.
All right, Exhibit 61 is received. Exhibit 167 is received, and permission to publish is granted.
Now, ma'am, directing your attention to November 23rd of last year, did you perform an autopsy on Jane Kulik?
I did.
And can you describe your findings during that autopsy? And if you can use Exhibit 167, as well as the pointer and the screen to your right.
Okay. So Ms. Kulik had three types
Exactly,
of
Steve.
injuries.
It's his job
She
to be
had the
prepared.
first kind we discussed being
I
struck
guarantee
by
he
a
has
vehicle.
2 copies of it
We
now.
have an impact to the
Oh, it's
left
easier to
hip here
see the
at
color
39
coding
and
on
a
this
half
one.
inches, and we have pelvic fractures.
I'm
on
guessing
the
those
left.
are kidney or liver
We
lacerations.
have injuries to the tops of the toes. Now, she had no shoes when I saw her.
So knocked
but
out
the
of her
sock
shoes
on the
from
left
the
foot was
impact.
torn right in the area of the toes. Also, there's an abrasion to the top of the foot. That would be considered with being taken out of her shoe. So that's from the car impact. Then second, we have injuries from hitting the ground.
Leg injuries,
We have a
pelvis
laceration to the
injuries,
back of the head.
rib injuries, spine
And we
injury,
have some
skull injuries,
abrasions on the left side of the face. and the
cervical
nose area.
injuries.
The third type of injury she has
She
is being
stood no
felt to be
chance.
run over by a tire. So we have a squared off abrasion across the upper abdomen, lower rib area.
That's her kidneys,
Sharply
liver,
demarcated as I drew
spleen.
there. So it's not as if the abrasion blended into the skin, like if you do a sliding motion.
That's
It
right,
was
Si.
quite sharply demarcated.
He's complaining that he's
Associated with
limited
this
to his
injury,
cell for
her
most of the
liver
day.
was
They've said it's for his own
lacerated,
protection.
multiple tears in the
People
liver,
do not like him.
bleeding from that liver injury. She had multiple fractures on the right side of her chest. Anteriorly, she also had lower rib fractures posteriorly here. So the pressure of the tire compressed the liver, and it also
Everyone
compressed
loves
part
the
of
dancing
chest. The
grannies,
diaphragm on the
and
right
people
was
don't
also
like
torn.
people who murder 8-year-olds.
There's also looked like a tire mark on the lower part of her left leg.
You murder
There were
children,
no
you're not going to
fractures
have a
on
good
that
time in
side.
prison.
So she had impact from the vehicle, impact to the ground, and then crushing from the tire.
What did you determine the cause of death to be for Ms. Kulik?
There's
Multiple
so
blood
many.
trauma.
And the fatal injuries, can you describe those for the jury?
Her injuries from being run over were probably the most severe, with the multiple rib fractures and the crushing of the liver. Also severe, however, was the pelvic fractures. Pelvic fractures, I didn't maybe explain, cause a lot of bleeding because your aorta divides in the pelvis into your iliac arteries. So it's a very big blood vessel, and also your inferior vena cava is there. So if you
That's the
damage
main,
any blood
the
vessels in the area
inferior
of the
vena
pelvis,
cava
you're
is the
damaging
main
pretty
vein
large
going
caliber
back up
vessels, and
to
you
the
can use a
heart
lot of
from the
blood.
lower body.
So, and also there's bone marrow in the pelvis. So pelvic injuries, especially when they're fragmented, as it was in her case, can be very, very serious. So I would say those were the two. And then the rib fractures, and I didn't mention, she also has pulmonary contusions on the right and hemorrhage in the retroperitoneum on the right. So those injuries, the chest injuries, the pelvic injuries, and the abdominal injuries.
What about the
each
neck
were very
injury?
serious and could have been fatal individually.
And is that consistent with Ms. Kulik being struck by a moving SUV weighing in excess
He's going
of
to say it's
3,300
hearsay.
pounds?
Yes.
Hearsay.
Overrule her answer.
My
was
crystal ball is
Yes.
attuned to him.
Finally, ma'am, I'm going to direct you to the autopsy protocol for Wilhelm Hospital, which is Exhibit 60. That should be in front of you.
Yes.
I'm
Jail
also,
and
did you
prison
prepare
are
a
definitely
diagram,
very different.
documenting your findings
animals.
through the autopsy protocol?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you
Both
what's
have,
been marked as
like,
State's Exhibit
if you were to say,
168.
I want jail over prison, that they both have,
Yes.
they're both unpleasant.
I'd
I
ask
don't
the
know
court
which is
to
more
admit Exhibit
unpleasant.
60, which is the autopsy protocol.
Sometimes I've
as
heard
well
jail
as the
can
diagram
be,
contained in Exhibit 162.
but then in prison, especially you're in Gen Pop
And
Max,
permission to publish 162.
lifers have nothing to lose. Most people get out of jail eventually. Prison,
Noted,
a
it's
little less
overruled.
so.
Exhibits 60 and 168 are both received. Permission to publish Exhibit 168 is granted.
That hurts,
What was the
static.
first? What was the first?
That you hit me to the core.
And ma'am, did you perform an autopsy on Wilhelm Hospital on November 22nd,
Or I could just
2021?
have guessed,
I did.
since
And can you explain
every
to the
other time
jury
she's asked,
your findings that are contained on
is this
Exhibit
consistent with
168?
being
Yes.
hit with a 3,300
Mr.
pound
Hospital
vehicle?
had
He said
similar
hearsay.
types of injuries from the impact of the car.
It's not, of
He
course.
had
It
a very
it does
rectangular
take
shaped
it's
bruise,
an
42
inference
inches
from
above
the
heel
evidence, which
to the
is
back of the
appropriate
left
from an
hip.
expert
And he
witness
also
like
had
this.
a bruise above, right around the back of the knee, slightly above and slightly below, but extending between 16.5 and 24 inches above the knee. This
I do not envy
hip
you.
bruise
The worst I've had
corresponds to the fractures of the left
as
side
far
of the
as
pelvis, right
needles
here. He also had foot
was
injuries. Instead of the toes, he had
lumbar
marks
sympathetic
to
nerve
the back
block,
of both
but they
heels.
gave me
And
fentanyl
that could
for
be
that.
because of the type of
which
footwear. Again, he
I
did
did
not,
not
I saw
like.
Mr. Hospital without clothing, so I did not see the shoes. They were taken off at the hospital because he had surgery. But he did have injuries that we often see in pedestrians as well, whether the shoes were taken off or just the friction from being struck.
Okay, I wasn't paying attention.
Then
That
he had the
she
injuries
moved
from
on to
hitting the
Bill
ground, which
Hospital.
were
Wilhelm.
lacerations and abrasions to the head on the right side and on the back. And the result of that was a fracture on the right side of the head.
And he's going to ask
But this
her,
is,
did you only
kind
do
of
the 3
also
autopsies?
interesting and shows how this injury occurred. The fractures on the right side of the head, but the bruise to the brain and small subdural is on the left side of the head. That's called contre-coup. And that type of injury occurs in a moving head injury. So
That's
his
basically
head
when
was
the
moving,
brain
hit the
bounces
ground
off
on the right,
the
caused the bruise
other
on the
side of
left
the
because
skull.
of the rebound of the brain striking the skull. So he had injuries from being struck by the car and injuries from hitting the ground.
And you
It's
testified,
basically,
first of all, about the injuries to
it's
the
like
back,
shaking
the
up
second
your
diagram
brain
from
in
the
a
left, and
jar.
the height of those injuries. Are there any relevance of the height of those injuries as well as the measurements that you took of the suspect vehicle, which was a red Ford?
Like if I hit the
Yes.
left side of my
When I
head,
measured
it bruises
the
the right
side
side of the brain because it
hood, I had
bounces
42 inches.
to
I have
the
there's a
right
picture
side
with
of
the
the
tape measure
skull.
showing that. So that
This would just be
corresponds well
so
to the height of this particular
so
pattern injury.
painful.
And the height of the top of the bumper, because now the bumper is not a shiny chrome protruding bumper, but it's kind of a flat bumper that's painted the same color as the vehicle, so it's rather broad, is about 26 inches, which would correspond to a strike to the back of the left leg there.
Thank you. And
Do you
you
mean
testified
powdered wigs
that
and ribbons,
unlike the other two people that you
ties,
performed autopsies
and
on,
robes?
were those people brought to the medical examiner's office from the crime scene being Main Street?
Objection.
They make barristers wear wigs
Mr.
too,
Overruled, she may
and
answer.
in Australia.
Mr. Rand was brought from
I
the
don't
scene.
think in
I
Canada,
saw
but
her
they
at the
do
scene
wear funny
before I did the
robes.
autopsy. Ms. Kulik was brought from Waukesha Memorial Hospital, where she was pronounced. And Mr. Hospital was brought later because he was treated at the hospital.
And can you describe, or did you determine the cause of death to be for Mr. Haskell?
Never had that. I mean,
Multiple blunt force trauma.
you know,
And the
for
fatal
the
injuries for
first
Mr.
few
Haskell, can you
for the
describe
first
those?
few days, amputation sucks. You know, that
Overruled, she may answer.
Okay. Mr. Hospital's
phantom
most of the
pain though for
injuries
8
were
years
related
sucks
to,
too.
his pelvic injuries, which he lost a lot of blood. They required to put a coil
Once
to
again,
try to
neither
obstruct
is
the bleeding
Wyoming,
vessel to
and
stop
birds
it
are
from
fake.
bleeding. It was
Don't
not
forget
accessible
birds.
surgically. They had to put like a coil through the vasculature, but also the impact here
I'd
caused
die here in
an injury
Utah
to
in the
thoracic
summer.
duct, which carries your lymph fluid. And as a result of that injury, he also had an accumulation of fluid.
94 Fahrenheit is a cool day in
that
July
occurred during the hospital
here in
course,
Salt Lake.
which impaired his respiratory status. So it's an indirect cause of the injury.
And most of our courthouses aren't single story, so you get up to
of the vehicle.
I think the federal courthouse is 7 stories, but they're tall, so it's more like being on the 10th or 12th floor.
So it's possible those head injuries
The heat would be
also
oppressive.
have been independently fatal.
And with those fatal
Yeah,
injuries
we
and the
don't
injuries
get the
that you've
80%
described, would those
humidity
be
very
consistent
often,
with
but
being struck by a moving SUV weighing in
you
excess
know,
of
it was
3,300 pounds?
107 around Labor Day here.
Overruled. Is the answer.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think really, thank you.
Any questions for this witness?
I do. Your primary field is
Pathology.
in the medical field.
No,
That'd be fair to say.
no,
Yes.
no. What a stupid question.
Any reason why you would be inspecting a car if that's not a medical professional thing?
Are you serious?
The examination of anything that's related to injuries in the people that I later examine is relevant in my specialty of forensic pathology.
It really is weird, Cy. The foot doesn't exist.
So
It shouldn't
examining
hurt.
the vehicle,
But the shocks, I call them the lightning bolts,
examining the vehicle
aren't constant. But when
would be
they
important
come,
to
oh,
your,
they're bad.
medical assessments in what way?
Because the injuries that people sustain, whether it's a vehicle in this case or anything
It's
else,
her job to
it's important to
investigate how
correspond the
injuries
nature of the
happen.
the implement being the car. So it's possible I would be shown a car that
If
would
you had
be
shot
not
people,
consistent with the
she'd
injuries.
be trying to figure out the caliber of the gun. Of course,
So
she's
it'd
going
be
to
fair
try to
say
figure
you've
out the
done,
height of the hood,
numerous
the height of the
autopsies in
bumper.
your time as a medical professional. Would that be fair to say?
That's true.
Steve, if she saw this comment,
And
she
as you
would be
just said,
insulted. She is way more than
examining
1,000 times smarter than
the
Brooks.
vehicle would be essential to your medical expertise. Is that fair to say?
To examining the cause of the injuries, yes. Looking at the vehicle is
Examining the
essential.
vehicle is important to interpret the injuries. I'm not sure that, I don't know if that's the answer to your question.
What a simple concept.
So if you were doing an injury assessment based on if the injury was caused by a different kind of instrument, would
If
the
she
same
didn't know,
apply
she'd have
to
marked the
having
level
to
of
view that?
injury so that detectives
Yes,
could
if,
compare it to
in cases
different
of gunshot
cars
wounds, I asked to
to
see the
figure
gun.
out
In
what
cases
what
of
models
stabbings or
might
blunt
fit.
trauma, I asked to see the weapons that they think were used.
Like I
so I
said,
can determine if
she
they
tried to
are
determine the
consistent
gun,
or
the
not
length of the
consistent. I
knife.
can't make matches, like precise matches, but I can say it looks like a baseball bat or it looks like a pair of scissors, that kind of thing.
It would be fair to say if in a case of a gunshot wound, as you brought up, it wouldn't be, it would.
I
let me
wouldn't
back
know.
up. It
I'm
would you
investigating
say it would be hard to
a
assess the
surgery
gun, given
that
that it
they've
wouldn't be the
actually,
actual gun, but
I
the
think,
bullets
started doing
that
pretty
cause the injury?
standard with new
Well, actually, I
amputations
don't
now,
examine the bullets, but I would
where
examine the
they
gun,
sort of
especially,
do a
for example,
specialized
if it's
way
a
of
contact wound.
implanting the end
So
of the
if the
nerve into the
muzzle of the gun
muscle,
touches the skin, then the muzzle
which
could leave a mark.
would
So then I
suck.
could say
You know,
the muzzle of the gun shown to me
surgery
might
would suck,
match the
but if it
mark.
gets rid of pain,
And that,
gets me off
if
of
it was
medication.
something similar to that, the muzzle type thing, that would be, the mark would be from the heat. Would that be fair to say?
As it
No,
is, I
not
think
actually.
having a
It's
robot
actually
leg is
from
cool
the
anyway,
contact
so
of the metal. So it's
just
more
get
of an
rid of the
abrasion
pain.
than a burn.
So in a case like,
Is it
in
impacted by
a case
weather
like
for
that,
you,
what would be
Cy?
the significance of
Because
the
I
actual
can tell
inspection
if
of the gun?
the atmospheric pressure is dropping
Okay, I think
because
it's a little bit of
storms
field of where
coming
we're
actually
at.
Grounds,
get me.
Overruled. She may answer. She brought it up as an example. I'll allow a little bit of leeway, but go ahead.
Could you repeat your question?
what would be the significance in a case like that, as you stated?
It was a circulation
you view
thing.
all types of
Swelling in
instruments,
the knee
gunshot
blocks
wounds and things
the
of that nature.
circulation.
what would be the significance of inspecting the actual gun in terms of the injury?
Well, I may be able to say that the mark on the skin, for example, is consistent with the outline of the muzzle of that particular weapon, looking at the dimensions and shape.
So what if it was used from a distance? Then what would be the essential reason to expect the gun?
Who
Depending on the
cares?
distance,
There,
sometimes the pattern of stippling, like for example, if there's a flash suppression or something used, that can play a role. If it's very
and
far
flying
away,
hasn't bothered
then the
me
actual characteristics
other
of the
than,
weapon are more
you know, I
general. In
obviously
other
wear my
words,
leg flying,
um,
and
the size of the
the
hole, for
space isn't super
example,
big,
or
so the
which might
socket, the
reflect both the
carbon
size of the
fiber
caliber
bucket
of the gun or the
is jammed
velocity.
into my tank,
So it
which
depends on,
can
distance does
get
play a role on what I would be
uncomfortable.
evaluating.
But I also can just, you know, I bend the knee back all the way, and so it's out of the way. So for my real foot, I kind of have a little more
Do you know
space.
if at the time you did the autopsies, if any of the victims you performed the autopsy on had any underlining illnesses
underlining
at that time?
underlining
Any
illnesses.
cancers or anything like that that may have been going on
They
at the time
they
that you
didn't
did
die
the
that
autopsy?
day from
Yes,
cancer.
I would make observations of any natural disease processes that I saw at the time of autopsy.
Did you observe any?
Yes.
Do you recall from who that was?
Well, Mr. Hospital, he was a older gentleman. He had some heart disease, as I recall, a pacemaker, some coronary artery disease. Ms. Kulik, as I recall,
I think that
had a large
would
fibroid.
definitely be more
That's what I
traumatic than
remember.
mine. So
I could look and
oof.
clarify my memory further, but those are examples.
Can you explain to the jury what is a large thyroid? Is that the word you thyroid?
Fibroid.
I'm sorry.
Yes, it's
Fibroid.
a benign uterine tumor.
Is that a form of cancer?
No,
And you said the older gentleman had some fluid buildup in the chest. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to misquote you. Some type of fluid around the chest area.
correct.
And from your recollection, that wasn't caused by the vehicle?
That was. He entered the hospital actually with no evidence of that fluid, but it's lymphatic fluid from a thoracic duct injury. So over the time he was treated, especially with the fluid resuscitation, because of the blood loss, the fluid collected in the hospital as a rupture of that thoracic duct injury and was in the pleural space surrounding the lungs.
So that it would be fair to say that that came about once he was already at the hospital.
That's true.
But you caused it. It wouldn't have
And you said he
happened
had a
if you hadn't
pacemaker.
hit
Would
him.
would that have any effect whatsoever on what might have been going on in his chest at the time?
No, and because he was in the hospital,
It's
the
his
function of
fault
that
for having a
pacemaker was well
pacemaker.
documented while he was being monitored.
Was it pretty active, still working properly at that time?
It was.
Even with the loss of blood, as you say, he had a loss of blood. Even then, was it still working pretty good?
Yes, the loss of blood had no effect on the electrical function of the pacemaker.
Exactly. It's a conspiracy against him. Um, Somehow the fake Australia and the fake birds all play a
And were
role in
you
it.
at the parade at the time of the incident?
No, I was called
And
after.
I'm going to pause it for just a second. I need to go check on something. So I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I thought I felt a thud come through the floor, so wanted to go make sure everything's okay. It was probably just a door closing. So we'll resume.
So at the time you were called, did you know
I've got to
any
be
information
careful.
about the incident?
My knee
Yes,
actually
because I
is.
was called in my function as a medical
I think it's
examiner.
Bluetooth.
I
It
was
might be
informed
Wi-Fi,
about
but
the death
it's
of
got
numerous people,
a
injuries of
Bluetooth
more,
app. So
and that this was a
I've got to be
result
careful because
of
my
a
knee
car
might
going
walk
through
me
the
into a
parade.
car.
Do you recall if it was referred to as a car or a SUV?
I'm sure I was told it was an SUV because the
Once
vehicle in
again,
question
hung
was in
up. Car versus
custody at the
SUV.
time.
And you were already privy to that information before you arrived at the scene?
Either
Seriously, dude.
before or at
She
the scene.
investigated it.
Do you recall whom informed you of that?
It could either have been my staff who were the first
It's
person.
actually pretty
the first
easy
people
going through
notified,
airport
So they would
security.
have reported to me what they were told.
I
Or it
mean,
could have been detectives at the scene
the
who I also
reality is
interacted with.
I walk just
So it'd be
fine
fair to say you don't really recall.
on
Not specifically.
normal surfaces. If I'm wearing long pants, most people wouldn't realize. But at
You said
airports,
you
I
observed damage to
frequently
the vehicle when you were able to view it?
I will
Yes.
request a wheelchair, and that just skips me right past the security line.
Would you say it was extensive damage,
They
or did you really
they
look at one
I get to
specific
keep
area?
my
Or
shoes
let me
on,
rephrase that.
and they do rub it with the cloth
Were
and
you really
do the
focused
bomb
on one
test,
certain
but
area of the vehicle
they
when you
can't
viewed
force
it?
me to take my leg off.
Well, when I was examining the car, actually the crime lab was there. So we looked at the entire
And
circumference of the vehicle, and the vehicle was also on a lift, and we
where
looked
am
under
I?
the vehicle because we were
Not a
questioning
not a
whether
haunted house.
there was
My Oma's house next door is
clothing
haunted.
perhaps,
My
or
house is not
other
haunted.
physical evidence that would
It's just people coming and going
important to
all day.
document. So I would say that I looked at the car quite
And yes, I do get to
comprehensively,
board the plane
although
first.
it was not my job to document damage to the vehicle per se, other than what related to my autopsy interest.
And that would be specifically looking at the hood of the vehicle to determine how it fit with your medical
She
expertise.
said she looked at the hood, the bumper,
Well,
the
I paid attention to the
front
front end of
face.
the vehicle, which is the part that typically is involved in pedestrian strikes. And those are the parts that I paid more attention to in terms of measurement than say, I don't know, but it would be wherever the damage is, because now I'm thinking in some pedestrian strikes, there are cracks to the windshield or injuries to the side mirrors and so forth. So I paid attention wherever I thought the damage would be that would be relevant to my cases. But I did take measurements of the front end.
With your expertise, would you determine that all of the damage that you observed would be caused strictly from hitting one thing or numerous?
She said she classified. She said it. Some of these are from the ground, some of them are from the
I can say that there were
hood,
multiple areas of the
or was that
car
the previous
that had
medical
damage.
examiner that
So
grouped them?
it would seem unlikely to be from one impact, because in my experience, it's, you could have a frontal impact, you can have a side
She
impact,
testified.
you can be
You
rear-ended.
knocked them out
but
of their
there were,
shoes.
Dents, if you will, in multiple areas of the car.
So from your expertise, that could have came from a number of different things.
That's true.
My uncles work for Delta, so at least half the flying I've done has been on buddy passes, and I've been pretty lucky to have mostly
You made a
business
brief
class.
observation about speed and velocity. Do you have any expertise
But
in that area?
Only
really,
to the extent that I
under
understand how
400
injuries
miles,
occur,
500
and
miles, it is
I-
typically
in
driving.
terms of the
Like
transfer of
Vegas has
kinetic
always
energy,
been
because all
driving.
injuries I see in the body have to do with that kind of transfer.
And I hate Vegas. I hate Vegas. My sister lived
Would it
there
be
for a
fair to say
while.
that everybody is different though?
No,
Everybody is different.
we're all the same.
So with May, um, I guess I would phrase the question by saying,
It's funny. See, I've commented.
something
For
that
me,
may seriously injure
if I
someone else
were
probably wouldn't
down in
seriously
my
injure
bedroom,
another person
just idly watching this, fiddling around on other devices,
based on your
it
expertise.
would be fine. I get so
Generally,
tired
things of a
because
serious
I'm
nature
hyper
don't
focused
become
streaming
not
it.
serious. I would say that different people
And so for the
might
jury,
have,
it definitely has
this,
to
you
get
know,
old.
there are differences in people and how injuries would how different events might injure them. But I wouldn't say that something that's serious
Edited
in one
how,
individual would be
Sai?
minimal in another.
Like
Even though there might be a range, it's not going to be okay for one person, but maybe deadly for another. That is not
it's
typically how it is.
like all
But it can
lawyer
vary.
answers.
It can vary.
Basically, it depends. It depends. And that's it. I'm glad I went
Do
to
you recall
Vegas.
how many people you were called to attend to?
I've been
the night
3
of the
times,
incident?
2 of them for
How many
weddings.
people I was
One
called
was
to
for my
attend to?
sister's
Yes.
when she lived down
There were
there.
3
One was
victims
for a
on the
family
road.
friend, and
Those
that
are
was
the
the
ones
first
that I
time I
saw
went. I
that
was
night.
like 22.
Did you see anyone else
But
besides
I
those
don't
3?
drink. I don't gamble. I
I later saw
don't like
Ms. Kulik, who
clubs.
came from the hospital. Those
The
were the people I
only
examined
trip I
that
took to
evening.
Vegas for strictly for pleasure
So it was
was
just
for a
3.
concert,
The
and
4.
it was a wonderful
Oh, I'm
concert.
sorry, 4.
But we literally drove
And-
down
and
the
no
day of the
one
concert and
besides
drove
those
back the
4.
next day.
Correct.
And this is where they'd have to get into. At some point, they're going to have experts testify about
Do
the
you recall
metadata
being notified
and
possibly to
indicators
testify
of editing.
in this matter?
Yes.
Do you know about when?
I mean, she
I
knew
knew
she'd
always that
testify
this case would
as soon as
end
she
up in
did.
trial. I mean, but I don't remember when
You
I
do an
actually had a
autopsy
date
in a
and time for
homicide, you
appearance.
know that you're going to
And
testify
how
if
would
it
you
goes
know
to trial.
exactly that the case would end up in trial? And I say that because many factors could play out along,
She knew if you didn't
many different
take
things
a guilty
happen
plea, it was going
over
to
time.
trial.
You're right. That was probably a misstatement on my part. I thought it might go to trial, given the nature of the case, but I did not know for sure.
That
makes
first
sense.
trip, we were in the California hotel. So Fremont Street was right there.
So you had an idea that you might be testifying.
That's true.
Why is he so hung up
And when
on
did you know for sure
when they
that you
knew
would
they might be testifying? This is so
But you really only know
stupid.
for sure when you're called to court. You get a subpoena and things can still change.
This is so stupid.
I
He's
guess that's
just
the best answer
wasting
I can give you.
time.
Do you recall when you were subpoenaed?
No,
Was it fairly recent to
They
now,
can
or was it some
definitely,
time
like,
ago, a few
when
months?
they're showing surveillance video, they only
probably
show
not
the
months, but I don't remember.
relevant portion. But they're generally not going to play like 10 seconds, cut out 30 seconds, and then play 10 more seconds, because
Do you recall whom you were
then
subpoenaed
the
by?
other party will argue,
The
well,
district
that
attorney.
30 seconds in the middle is what's really
Would that be
important.
referring to one of the district attorneys here today?
Sue Opper.
Because there's the rule of completeness for evidence, and so it's best to submit a whole video, or at least that whole portion of a video, or a whole document, and it's
Do
best
you
to
recall what
do
time
the
you arrived on the
original.
scene after the incident that night?
It was about 10 to 8.
But like I've said earlier, the rules of evidence are an entire class of law school, and even then, it's very compressed. You have to
And
fly
do you
through
recall what time
to
you finally left
almost
the scene?
get through the rules.
No, I don't recall exactly.
Would it be fair to say you were there for quite some time?
What's quite
Probably
some
around an
time?
hour or so, and then we continued our work at the medical examiner's office for a couple more hours.
He gets so fixated on irrelevant things. I mean, and I say that not irrelevant as in objectionable irrelevant,
And after
just
you
that
were subpoenaed,
they're of
did
no
you,
consequence.
were you in contact with Attorney Opera after that?
Yes,
I don't think the Mirage, I can't think which one the Mirage is. The only mall I went to was the Forums at
Did Attorney Opera ever state
Caesar's
that she was the
Palace,
plaintiff in this matter?
and that
Objection,
was only a small
Sustained.
portion.
You do not have to answer that
To
question.
me, the best thing on the
Grounds for
strip
sustained.
is in the,
You may ask your next question.
I can't remember what the hotel's called, but they have
Were
the
you ever made
automotive
aware
museum.
Of the
And
plaintiff
to
in
me,
this
that
matter?
was cool.
Objection,
Grounds.
relevance.
Sustained. You do not have to answer that. Please ask your next question.
Grounds for the sustained, Your Honor.
Relevance.
Ask your next question.
Relevance. She doesn't have to explain her rulings to you.
Do you even know if there's a plaintiff in this matter?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Shut him
No
down.
reason for the sustained, Your Honor.
Ask your next question.
Shut him down.
No reason for the sustained, Your Honor.
Ask your next
What's a
question.
sustain other than you? As Static
know of any
says,
claims
you're a
filed in this matter?
sustain.
By you or anyone else?
what are claims?
Any reports filed, any,
I would not do the coaster on top of the
any filings
stratosphere.
made on your behalf or anyone you know?
I would not do that. Or the
Actually,
rides
not
that
sure I
hang out
understand that.
over. That there's
That's what
no way I would ever.
Sustained. Sustained is the form of the question.
My buddy works for the school district here, and so he has today and tomorrow off. Static, as Static
Did
would
you,
know, it's the
make any claim
UEA
of being an
weekend.
inter-party in this
So
matter?
he's off to the hot
No.
springs in
Do
Colorado,
you know of anybody?
Glenwood
that-
Springs. He says there's an amusement park built
Perhaps.
onto the mountain
Objection,
there
relevance.
Grounds.
that adds height to roller coasters and stuff.
Sustained.
Reason for the sustained, Your Honor?
Because it's not a proper question.
Relevance. Speculation. Vague.
All of the above.
Have you had any opportunity to view a complaint in this matter?
Objection, vague.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form.
Have you ever seen a complaint in this matter?
Objection, vague.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form.
Okay, so the Mirage is next to Caesar's Palace. So I've walked past it.
Have you ever at any time had any interaction with the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Reason for the sustained, Your Honor?
Because it's irrelevant. It's an
Vague.
improper
Relevance.
question. Shut him down.
I would object to that sustained. You said.
Who
vague and
cares what-
relevant to.
It's not relevant.
Sustained. Next question.
She
sir.
sustained the objection.
It's relevant
Move
or not.
on.
Jury
Your
deserves to
objection
know.
is overruled.
I respect that. Jury deserves to know, though.
No, they don't. The
So
jury.
disregard the last
uh,
statement.
You
made
don't
by Mr.
decide
Brooks. It's
what
not
the
his
jury
time to
can and
testify.
can't know.
Comments made by the
Stop
parties or
arguing.
attorneys are not evidence.
His closing, well, he hasn't done his opening.
Have
His
you ever seen
opening
the
and
plaintiff
closing
in this matter?
arguments are
Objection,
going to
relevance.
be objection
Sustained.
city,
Reason for the sustained, Your Honor?
same as the last.
So that would be relevancy and vagueness.
No, it's relevance,
That's
not
your next
relevancy. Relevancy is not a word. You're new here, Cy. I'm not a petty person, but he makes me petty.
Was today your first time ever seeing those exhibits that were shown?
An objection to a sustained
You seen those before, those videos?
objection
Videos,
is called an
The
appeal.
exhibits that
It's
were shown.
done.
diagrams.
Yes. I'm sorry. I
But
didn't know that's
if
how you
I were to do
identify
it, if I kept
I drew
doing it,
them.
those exact ones?
I'd
Yes.
probably be held in
Okay.
contempt pretty quick.
I wasn't aware of that. I apologize for that question. And so I'm assuming at some point you turned those over to the district attorney. Would that be fair to say?
Today.
Oh, today?
Good to know, Cy. It's nice to have
Any
you here
reason
in the
why
live
you
chat.
didn't previously turn those over before you actually were called to test, or before you knew that you would be testifying today?
I decided to prepare them for the purpose of testimony. They didn't exist before today.
That's interesting.
Leave your commentary out of this.
So this was really like a 11th hour bottom of the night thing for you to get them prepared and be ready to go today then. Would that be fair to say?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean,
She's
it's
a
true.
professional.
I did finish preparing them today, but I was,
the work was done.
what shall I say? I was detailing them and wanted them to be as good as possible.
It's not like she had her knives and
So
scalpels
how long
out
did it take for you to detail
doing
them?
the autopsy this morning.
I guess I have to explain that there are no pre-existing diagrams of front and back
See,
skeleton
I'm
and body
sovereign
diagrams in
citizens
my
drive me
office's
nuts, but
collection
I'm
of diagrams.
fascinated
So I
by
spent time
the
finding the proper
ideology,
diagrams,
by the
scaling them,
lore,
composing them, and putting
because
them
it's
in a
completely
format that I thought
batshit.
would be the best to
Whereas, like,
illustrate the points I wanted
frauditors
to make. So
are just
I created
jerks.
the basic diagram,
So I tend
and
not to
then I
watch
decided on
coverage of
how
them
to
very
describe
much,
the injuries, and I, did one version.
even though
and I
there
did
is
another version.
overlap.
I wanted it
There's
to
no
be
ideology
very good,
other than
and so that's why I can say it didn't
causing
exist in the
trouble.
form you saw today until today, because that's what I was doing.
But
So would it be
just
fair to
the
say that you
lore
have been
for
working at
sovereign
this for some
citizens,
time then?
to me, it's a
to get it
pathology
the
in
way
and of
you-
itself. It's
A few
complete
days,
insanity.
Did you anticipate that you would be using those diagrams?
Yes,
That's an apt metaphor in this case, Steve.
So I'm assuming that some type
And
of conversation had to be
it doesn't
had in order
work,
for
but
you
they
to
hear
work
that
that
it worked
hard on
for a
those
friend of a
diagrams.
friend of a
Would that be fair to
friend.
say?
That
yes,
it's like you hear all the
And you
time.
had that conversation
There's
with
Supreme
Attorney
Court
Albert?
case law
Yes.
on this. Well, then provide the case law. Yeah. But I think most of them are not true believers.
To your knowledge,
They're
why
just
would you?
desperate.
Well, not why.
And then there's the
Take that back.
fake gurus.
To your
but
knowledge,
it's just
what would be the reason why
it's
you
insanity.
weren't already asked to develop those diagrams?
huh?
Meaning, why weren't you asked this months ago in advance?
They didn't ask her to prepare
I don't
diagrams in
think
a
that
certain
anybody
way.
thinks about what exhibits might be used in a trial until the trial approaches, would be my answer.
But it would be fair to say that you just testified that you didn't know for sure if there would be a trial.
Correct.
It was an assumption.
So she did her homework. She did the work. It got done. She's prepared. She's an excellent witness. Her testimony was damning. He's halfway to being an idiot savant.
Had you ever
He just needs to work
created
on the
any,
savant part
diagrams
of
like
it.
that before this
Yeah.
incident?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
For
she's a
these
medical
cases?
examiner.
Or at any time before this particular
I mean,
case?
she's probably
Are you
done
still you're
10,000
not referring to these
autopsies.
particular
These
cases?
particular, the way that you did these, had you ever done this before this incident?
She's a medical
I've used
examiner,
diagrams in many, many
clearly late
trials. I
in her
just didn't have a
career.
diagram that displayed the body and the skeleton in this manner. You know, I had no
Considering he's
pre-existing
faced
form, but I
what?
use diagrams all the
He's been
time.
in court 17 times for felonies over the last
So for
22
this particular
years.
case, you decided to go a little bit extra. Would that be fair to say?
He's what's known as a
Wow.
career criminal.
Sustained. As to the form of the question.
Would it be fair to say then that for this particular case,
I'm always good, Static.
you decided that you would want a diagram that was a little bit more defined?
She wanted to provide good evidence.
What I decided was we had 3 decedents, and I thought it would be easiest for the jury to understand the complexity of the
decedents that
injuries. We're
she
talking
testified
about 3
about.
people sequentially, if I could
Because there were
compress the
6 deaths
information.
total.
Otherwise, a typical autopsy might have a skull diagram, and then another page a body diagram, and then another page a skeleton. You know, it would be multiple
I seriously
pages.
don't know
And
where
I
he's
thought that
going,
would be
Si.
very,
He's not
difficult
helping
when we're
himself.
talking about 3 different people.
So had you thought of that before in any other cases that you've done before this one?
How are other cases
don't
relevant to this
Remember
case?
testifying
This
about
is
3
inconsequential.
pedestrians in trial in one sitting ever before.
No,
So
I
she's
wasn't
saying this is
asking,
one of the
if
worst
you
cases she's
testified at
testified
trial
in.
before. I was asking,
Then be clear
based
with your
on
questions.
the explanation that you just gave about making it easier to read the diagrams. Had
She
you ever
wants it
thought
as
of that
easy as
before
possible on the
this
jury.
particular case?
Yes, it's not unusual for me
I'm
to
sure
create
she
my own
wants
diagrams
constant improvement
specific
in
to
her
a case.
diagrams.
What I meant by that question was the way that you design these particular diagrams. Had you thought of doing it this way
Oh, this way.
before?
He says
This
it with such
particular incident.
condescension in his voice and in his face.
Sustained.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor?
It's not relevant. She's testifying about this case, not other cases. How she prepared reports for other cases is inconsequential. Is he done?
Do you recall when you
Oh.
completed all your medical work for this particular case?
It was done on the 23rd.
But the autopsy report was
The
signed
autopsy's
in
not over several
February
days.
of 2022. So my medical work, my conclusions were concluded at that time.
So about 8 months.
No.
At the time that you concluded your
I mean,
reports,
good professionals are
already
always
thinking
trying
about
to
forming,
improve.
the diagrams for the injuries?
No,
So that kind of came about during the process of possibly knowing that you might testify.
Well, why
the
would she
diagrams
prepare all the
were created
diagrams
as court exhibits.
before knowing for sure she's going to testify? She has the report.
Today,
Completed today.
Oh yeah. She's definitely an expert. Definitely an expert. I mean she has to be because it is
do you recall what time they were
opinion
completed today? Was it
testimony
morning
saying
or
I
Shortly
concluded that
before you
this
came in,
was the
or
cause of death.
grounds?
So
Overruled. She may answer.
it's an informed opinion, but it's still an opinion
I
testimony.
think I actually completed them
So,
last night.
she has to be
We
an expert
got the
witness.
copies made this morning, and they were not given to Miss Opper until today. So I think they actually were completed in terms of my sketching last night, but they were not, I had to get color copies made and they had to be submitted. So I would say, I thought of them as being done this morning, but I was working on them last night.
No further questions.
Oh,
Briefly. We
that
have
was
to follow up
brutal.
on these diagrams that have been presented in court today. Are all the findings that are contained in those diagrams from the autopsy protocol?
Yes,
Overruled.
Relevancy.
Overruled.
And ma'am, could you have brought in a it's Halloween, so we see them all over the place, but could you have brought in a skeleton and described the same injuries?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. It's
Objection,
redirect.
hearsay.
She may,
It's-
it's not hearsay. She may answer.
I could show you
He's
the broken
grasping at
bones on the
straws.
skeleton. I couldn't show you the injuries to the soft tissues or the organs on the skeleton.
And if you had in a doll or a mannequin, that would be something that you could show the jury, just like you did in these diagrams, where the injuries, the external injuries were. Would that be a correct
Objection,
statement?
relevancy.
Overruled.
But she doesn't
answer.
need
That's
to
true.
because
So is there
She
anything on these
sketched them
diagrams
on the
that were not
diagrams.
contained within the autopsy protocol that were turned over to the state months ago?
I mean,
Objection,
I'm sure she
relevancy.
took photos in the
Overruled.
autopsy.
No,
She
there's
could have
nothing on
shown the
diagrams
photos.
That was not,
Would you have
that
liked the
isn't
photos
listed
shown
in
as the
autopsy
diagrams,
reports.
Brooks?
In fact, if I had a blank diagram in reviewing the autopsy protocol today, if I put a blank diagram in front of you, could you have made these same markings right here? And it would have just taken time, obviously, but could you have done it right now?
Yeah.
Objection, lead the witness.
It's not.
Overruled. You may answer.
yes, I could.
Thank you. Now, I want to talk briefly about Jane Kulik's autopsy. You had stated
He
that
does
you
not.
had discovered a benign
And she's
uterine
chastised him
fibroid. Is that correct?
Correct.
over
Did that in any way
his
was that a factor
objectionable
in her death?
failures.
Objection, hearsay.
He doesn't care though. She's told him
Overruled.
multiple
She
times,
may answer.
read what
No.
hearsay is.
And with regard to
Stop
Wilhelm
arguing
Haskell,
when I sustain an
was the
objection.
presence of a pacemaker in any way
just doesn't
related
care.
to his death?
Objection, I asked that in my cross and she answered.
Overruled. It's redirect. It's proper. The state may ask it. You may answer.
No,
The coronary disease that you testified to on cross-examination, did that play a factor in his death?
Objection, same reason.
Overruled.
Already
You may
answered.
answer.
no,
It's not
The thoracic
asked and answered
fluid
if
found
you
in
asked
Mr.
it.
Haskell's lungs that you said did play a factor in his death. Is that correct?
yes,
What caused that fluid buildup around his lungs?
Bleeding,
Objection.
internal
Answered already.
bleeding.
Overruled. You may answer.
it was an injury to the thoracic duct that was caused by the impact of the vehicle to his body.
Nothing further, thank you.
All right. Thank you. You may step down.
He's maddening. What's that? What are you motioning? Oh yeah, the brilliant idea. He's
My jurors are okay. Just thought we'd stand for a bit, but then keep going with testimony. So everyone may stand. Do a little stretch break. We haven't done one of those in a while. Probably good thing the camera can't capture you.
I mean, until 2 weeks ago, he did have two lawyers, two highly experienced lawyers. They were probably the best lawyers at the public defender's office, because they do tend to assign their best lawyers to a case like this. He didn't want them. And
When you're
in
ready, have a
Wisconsin, you're not entitled to standby counsel. You either have lawyers or you don't. and that's been
All
held
right,
to
the
be
statement calls next
constitutional.
witness.
Father Matthew Witter.
Father
Sir,
Matthew
if you would
Witter.
please make your way to my witness stand, which is
So
all the way
we're-
up here, upper riser
so
to my right.
now
When you get there, please remain
We
standing.
are on to the
Raise your
next
right hand.
group
My clerk.
because
Teresa
he
will swear
ran
you in.
through the
Do you
Catholic
solemnly swear
group.
that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth,
The-
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
There was
so
a
help you God?
Catholic community of
Thank you, sir. Please
Waukesha
have
or
a seat.
something marching.
The first thing I will have you do is state your first and last names for the record and spell each.
My name is Matthew Witter, Matthew.
That's it. Lawyer,
Last
you
name
have a
Witter,
lawyer or you're pro
WIDD as
se.
in dog,
Although he's arguing
Thank you.
with her.
Go ahead, your witness.
I'm not pro se,
Sir,
I'm
who are you
pro
employing?
per.
I'm the pastor of the Catholic community of Waukesha for four Catholic churches in the city of Waukesha.
And what are those Catholic churches?
So St. William, St. Joseph, St. Mary, and St. John Newman. We're also associated with Waukesha Catholic,
John Newman,
the school.
Okay,
That-
thank you. And
the
when you say
drama
the
teacher at my high
Catholic
school was
community of
named
Waukesha,
John Newman,
four
I think.
parishes, and you're the pastor at
I
all
didn't
four?
take drama.
Exactly.
But
Yep. There's four of us priests. I'm the pastor. There's two other priests and a team, that kind of works together.
So you
And
actually
his dad was my
do
elementary
sermons
school
or
principal.
services at each of the four churches?
Yep. Exactly. So we
for kindergarten
four of
through
us
second
priests
grade.
kind of go around and exactly wherever we're called to be. We're kind of on a bit of a rotation, but we're at all those four churches.
Direct your attention to November 21st of last year. Were you at the City of Waukesha Christmas Parade?
Exactly. I was the Catholic community of Waukesha Catholic. We're walking in the parade.
And when you say, were there just one group of people, or when you said the school and the
Yeah,
church?
we were one group.
Let her finish.
Did you have a float or anything?
We did not have a float. There was a banner, and the banner was kind of being carried at different times by a different amount of people, but otherwise we were walking different
That
proximity to
could
the
be
front and back. We were spread
entertaining.
out a little bit.
See,
Actually, how many people were in that group that day?
Probably between 40 and 50.
I
Was there
don't
any type
know
of
though.
formation?
There wasn't like
Are the
I think at different
are
times
the
we were probably
religious
closer together,
sovereign
at different times we were
citizens-
more spread out.
do they tend to be
As the praise went on, I
anti-Catholic?
think some people walk faster, some slower.
And no uniform, or did everyone wear the same type of shirt or sweatshirt?
We didn't have no. It was somewhat cold, so we had different kind of trying to stay generally speaking warm.
You
We had some
didn't all
little
wear
kind
the
of little
priestly
very small kind of
collars.
lights that we're kind of carrying, very small, just kind of that sense of, not everyone had them. I didn't have one. But that sense of kind of bringing the light of Christ into Christmas. And
Thank you. I'm going to show
How
you a
dare they
variety
bring
of
religion into
exhibits.
Christmas.
First, I'm going to publish them or put them on the
Don't they
screen in
know
front
we're
of you.
celebrating the
And I'll
birth
direct
of
your
Santa
attention there. I'll
Claus?
ask you some questions about them, okay? So first thing I start with Exhibit 129. And let me know when you see that exhibit in front of you.
okay, yep, I see it.
And have you seen that picture before?
Yep, I have.
And do you know who that was taken by?
I believe it was taken by Jason Peckloff. He's at least the person that I saw the picture from. So it was probably circulated, but
Okay. Do you know when it was taken?
it was taken before the parade started with some of the group.
So this wasn't all the people in your group?
Not everyone, but a chunk of people.
Are you familiar with pretty much everyone within?
Well, that's
this
true
picture?
because we all know I'm the real
And there are
Pope.
names that are associated with certain people who are
There are a billion people in the world who should be answering to me.
considering injured parties in this matter. Do you see those names?
I do.
Do you see the arrows that are associated between the people and the name?
I do.
Can you briefly look at that and let me know if those names are correctly associated with the correct people?
Because we actually know that
Yeah,
the
to
true
to best
religion
of
is
my
Catholicism
ability.
mixed with
Juan
Hinduism. So
Marquez
the
is
Pope
kind of in the back.
isn't
That's a difficult
appointed.
one to say.
It's reincarnation like
probably
the
him on
Dalai
that angle, I
Lama.
couldn't say
And I'm
like
clearly the
100%, but
837th reincarnation of Saint
very, very
Peter.
probable.
I would ask the court to admit Exhibit 129 into evidence and publish it for the jury. Would ask
Objection
the
to
court to
relevancy.
publish.
The objection is overruled.
There's definitely that.
Exhibit 129 is received and permission to
Either
publish
Rome
is
or
granted.
Freemasons or there's so many weird
Can you briefly kind of go over the people who are named and their relationship with the other
conspiracy
people,
theories.
in
It's
this
hard to
picture?
keep them
For example, I
straight.
see
Yep.
some kids with the last name Perales Alvarez.
Exactly.
Can you kind of describe what their relationship is to one another?
Exactly. Yep. So Yamilet and Ashley, they're and then next to them unnamed is Yashleen. They're the daughters of Maria Alvarez Dominguez, is his name. You just say Alvarez Perales, actually.
Okay.
And then Jose Perales
Actually, Steve,
Alvarez.
Okay.
we're not allowed to talk about the
connected there.
blasphemous
And
flying
then,
spaghetti monster. I actually did
Benjamin
start
and
my
Elliot
own
Hallmark
church,
are,
the
are
Reformed
siblings.
Church of
So their other siblings are there
Pastafarianism,
too.
and we
Gregorio
revere
Malia,
the Grand
as you guys may know,
Linguini.
Perez and Camila.
Only the
On the far
Grand
left,
Linguini is
that's
allowed
mother
in this
and
chat.
daughter.
Okay.
And then Juan in the back, his son David is up front. His head is kind of ducked to the side. So those would be the relationship connections.
How about Adair Lopez Revelar?
Objection, leading the witness.
Adair is
Hold on, there's been an objection. I need to rule on it. The objections noted, it's overruled. And you may answer.
Grounds.
so Adair is his mother Marisol was also in the parade. She's not in the picture though.
And how about Maria Alvarez Dominguez? I don't know if you addressed her yet.
Oh, yeah. Maria is she's the mother, and I forgot Eileen. I know I was missing someone. Eileen is on the far right. So Eileen with the A, Yamilet, Ashley are and then Yashleen, who's doesn't have a name box by her. They're the kids of Maria and
I do
Jose,
encourage
who's got
blasphemy.
You see the red hood.
Just
And does this
not
accurately
against the Grand
reflect kind of
Linguini.
the clothing that they were wearing while they were marching in the parade on November 21st of last year?
I believe so.
Okay. I'm now going to direct you to Exhibit 128.
And if that's your goodbye for the night,
Good night.
Steve,
I thought,
thanks for hanging out.
So can you identify the person depicted in that photograph, 128?
Yeah. So as it says, that'd be David.
Okay,
He'd be
so
one
that
of the
is correct.
younger kids.
He was kind of hidden a little bit in Exhibit 129, so I wanted to get a better picture of him. I'd ask that this be admitted into evidence. I'm sorry, was this taken on the day of the parade? Does it appear?
It would definitely appear. I'm not familiar with the picture, but it would definitely appear.
That appears to be the street that you guys
Exactly.
walked on
Yep,
and the clothing
definitely.
that he was wearing.
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled. Father, do me a favor and just wait until the question is fully
Sounds
asked
good.
before you answer it.
I
know it can
figured.
be very easy to anticipate, but the very nice lady in front of you is taking down a record of everything that's said. And it just makes her job a little
Once
bit more
again,
difficult.
it's
if
not
that
a
happens.
conversation.
It's okay. So
It's
hopefully
not
his answer
natural to
was
testify.
clear. If not, you can re-ask.
And I'm sorry, that accurately reflects what you believed you would have seen on November 21st of last year.
Yes.
I would ask that Exhibit 128 be admitted into evidence and published to the jury.
Objection.
Exhibit 128 is received and
I
permission to publish is
I
granted.
can't think of a
The objection is overruled.
recipe that would be
Now, I'm
good
also
with
gonna
cheddar
then,
cheese
show
on
you on the screen in
spaghetti.
front of you, Exhibit 121.
It's possible, but can't think of one.
Let me know when that's showing in front of you.
It is.
Okay. You had indicated
That
that
hurts,
in front of the
Steve.
group
That
was a
hurts.
banner. Is this consistent with what you're seeing, or can you describe generally what you're seeing in Exhibit 121?
That would be our group, somewhat close to the beginning of the parade route. So that's the banner. That's Bob carrying it on one side, and Jason Peploff.
Is that a regional dish
on the
somewhere?
other side?
I think I've heard.
St.
I
Matthias
think
in
I've
the
heard of
background.
Skyline
St.
Chili,
Joseph
but
is
I can't think
kind of
of
right in
it.
front of that, towards the beginning of the route.
Okay. And there are other names that are associated with people. There's a box with their name with a red arrow going from the person to the name. Are all of those correctly diagrammed?
That's what I thought.
Camila certainly is. Jason certainly is. Adair certainly is. Maria certainly
Trust
is.
Ohio to do that.
Juan, I couldn't say.
Here we have
definitively
green
if
Jello
that's
and
him,
with
and Jose
shredded carrots and
I believe
funeral
that's him, but I
potatoes
couldn't say
and fry sauce.
definitively on that particular angle.
Two of the three are
And with
good.
regard to Jason Peckloff, specifically, since we've identified the other people in this photograph through Exhibit 129, that is Jason Peckloff, and he's correctly named in this
Yeah,
diagram.
definitely.
Objection. Everybody was not positively identified.
I would note that the witness, most with certainty, others without. So the jury should just keep that in mind at this point. I don't believe there's been an offer though or a request to receive it just yet. So I'll withhold any of that.
And Your Honor, I'm going to move Exhibit 121 into evidence, ask that it be published with the understanding that Father Witter indicated that Jose Perales Alvarez and Juan Marquez, it would be consistent, but he cannot say with 100% positivity that those are those two individuals.
But that's from
It's
a
not said
picture
with,
from
certainty
before the
whatsoever.
parade. It's taken
The
at the
answer was
church.
He's not sure.
It's
Oh.
taken from the church. It's not.
Exhibit 121 is received as noted by the state. Permission to publish is granted.
Sir, again, in looking at this exhibit, which is 121, other than Jose Perales Alvarez and Juan Marquez, which you indicated you weren't positive about, the other people whose names are and arrows are on that picture, you can positively identify them?
100%.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 122.
And looking at
And
the
again, this is consistent with a picture
Real-time
that was taken at the very
stream.
beginning of the parade where
It
the
looks
other
like
picture was
the
taken from.
priest is
That's
still
correct.
testifying
And
live.
there are two names
So he
associated
goes
with
for a
two
while.
individuals on this picture. Can you positively identify that those individuals are the people in this picture?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overrule.
It's
Yeah,
foundational.
William Mitchell and Yamilet Perales, that would be 100% certain.
Thank you. I would ask the court to admit Exhibit 122 into evidence and publish it for the jury.
Exhibit 122 has received permission to publish. Granted.
And again, this accurately reflects the identity of William Mitchell. If you can just circle William Mitchell in the photograph, it is a touch screen in front of you.
It should.
And Yamilet Perales Alvarez.
Thank
you. Moving on to Exhibit 123.
Are you going to capture it? She didn't capture his annotations as a sub-exhibit.
Can you identify the individuals who are named in this exhibit?
Objection, the names are on there.
Question was whether he could identify the individuals who are named. So
That's a
your
big arrow pointing to
He's
Your-
testifying.
objections noted, it's overruled.
The
You may answer
the
question.
exhibit isn't testimony. He's testifying.
So each of the
In order
people,
for the
Benjamin
names with
that
arrows
arrow
to
is
count,
correct.
he
Maria
has to
Perez,
identify them.
That is correct. That is Luke Hallmark. Marisol, that would be Marisol, and then Gregoria. I would say 100%. I would attest to that picture.
And again, does this look to be taken in the same vicinity as the other pictures I've shown to you?
It definitely, it's towards the beginning of the route. Exactly. That's probably St. Matthias right there, and St. Joseph be right in front of us.
I'd ask the court to admit Exhibit 123 into evidence and to publish it for the jury.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. Exhibit 123 has received permission to publish is granted.
In what world is pictures of the victims
Again,
at the
sir, I'm just
parade
gonna ask you to
irrelevant?
circle the people associated with the names as I call them out. Benjamin Hallmark, I think you had previously identified in Exhibit 129, but where is he? And you can circle him. Okay. And Maria Perez,
Sorry,
Luke Hallmark, Marisol Lopez Gutierrez.
They're all on the far left
Gregorio
side,
Romelia
difficult to
Perez, I think you
see.
said you know her as Romy.
So clearly he
Yeah, she
went
has to go
through
Thank you.
that side of the
I'm now going to show
group with
you
the car.
State's Exhibit 124.
Is this another picture, or are they getting to
Another one. Oh, you
video?
see it, I'm sorry. And does this again looks like it's taken from the same angle as the prior exhibits.
So
Do
still
you
looks like
see
identifying.
the name of Elliot Hallmark and Father Pat Heppy?
I do.
And are the
Father
arrows associated
Happy?
with the people that you know as Elliot Hallmark and Father Pat Heppy?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yep, 100%.
Thank
Those
you.
those would be correct.
Thank you. I would ask the court to admit Exhibit 124 and publish it for the jury.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. Exhibit 124 is received and permission to publish is granted.
I can't
And
wait
then
till
just
he
clarify
tries
for
to
the
lay a
jury, Elliot
foundation
Hallmark,
to
can you circle him?
admit exhibits. It's going to be
And Father Pat
a
Heppy,
mess.
can you circle him? Now, was he one of the other three pastors?
Exactly. Yep. Father Pat is the pastor emeritus in the Catholic community of Waukesha. So he's one
I
of the
think he
foremost
said
priests.
4
Okay.
parishes, 4
And
churches.
finally, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit
He
125.
might have said 3 though.
Let me know when it's on your screen.
Yep.
And the final two of the people that we did not identify in that first picture, Exhibit 129, Lori Loken and Margaret Pekulis, and she goes by Peggy. Do you see them in this picture?
I do.
Are they correctly identified?
They are.
I'd ask and again, this photograph is taken at the same location as the others?
Yep.
Okay. I'd ask the court to admit Exhibit 125 and allow it to be published for the jury.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. Exhibit 125 is received and permission to publish is granted.
Thank you. If you can circle Lori Loken
I think
and
they
Margaret
will
Pekulis.
fight him. They're not going to give him anything that
Thank
they
you.
don't have
You
to.
can take this exhibit down. Do you recall as you were marching or walking in the parade, what group
Because
was
if they
in front of
somehow
you?
let him get in irrelevant evidence
The
that
group in terms of
confuses
we were,
the
Catholic
jury,
Memorial Group was the
they
group
only
in front
get
of us.
one
Behind
shot
us
to
were the Dancing
convict.
Grannies.
Okay, thank you.
If
That's what I was looking for.
if somehow the jury comes back not guilty, it's done. So they're definitely not going to go easy on him just to get it
What
over
at
with.
some point was your attention drawn to something during the parade? Something unusual.
Yeah, so we were all of a sudden kind of heard a scream, and my experience was I turned to my left, and there was a red SUV just flying down the road.
Was it flapping its wings?
My next experience would be kind of hearing it,
Of course, I've been saying it flew down the route.
striking people.
And I'm gonna just, because we have to put on the record that you put your fist to your
Yeah,
palm of your
just, yeah.
hand, making a striking noise.
Yep, just kind of like a
Objection, leading the
pounding
witness.
sound, I guess.
It's not. She's making a record. It's not
Overruled.
leading.
The description may stand. Keep going. Next question.
How many times did you hear that?
So for
Objection,
me,
leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
I heard 2 times.
Where were you when you were marching in this group? Were you on, as you're walking down Main Street, were you on the right-hand side of the group, which would be, I don't know why I can't get this right,
I don't know
the
that
right
he's
side would
ever
be, I
been
believe, the north.
employed.
or were you on the left-hand side of the street, which would be the south, or were you in the middle?
I was more towards the right-hand side of the street.
And they
Did
could
you look
have
back?
objected more, but
And you said you looked back and saw the
they
red
haven't
SUV,
let a
correct?
lot go.
Yeah, the way I would describe it is if the car would have hit me, it would have hit me. I kind of saw it as it was entering into our group.
And the 2 impacts that you heard, did you see those impacts?
my mind blocks that part out of it. So I couldn't say who was hit in those impacts. What I could say is that my next encounter was that there were 3 people from our group that I don't believe would have been the ones with impact that were lying more or less right in my immediate path.
So 2 right in front of you on the right-hand side of the
Yep.
street as you testified?
So once again,
On the right-hand side.
it's
Those are the first,
traumatic.
the 3
The
people that I
mind plays tricks
was right
when you
by then.
experience
And
something
before that call went
traumatic.
through, were those 3 people on the ground?
You either
Definitely not.
remember
Where did
everything
this impact
vividly,
take place? Do you know
or
approximately
it
where on the
blocks.
parade route?
Yeah,
The-
so
there-
it
there's
was
no
sort of been passed
fuzzy
per
memories
insurance.
is
It would have
basically what
been,
I'm
I
saying.
believe it's Main Street Bar and Grill, and then there's kind of an unnamed bar, and then there's Planned Parenthood. So those would be it's kind of a Main Street, between Main Street and kind of unnamed bars where it happened.
So
I'm going to show you
The-
what's marked and admitted into evidence as states.
I
Exhibit
would
15.
find it
It'll not only be, I'd ask that it be
kind
published as
of
well.
funny,
Go ahead.
the Catholic priest taking shelter in
Objection.
Planned
You
Parenthood.
need to publish the same picture.
But
Objections noted,
also,
it's overruled.
it is heartbreaking at the same time that he
On this
had to
picture, there are
seek shelter.
different groups that appear to be on this picture. Can you describe, what does this appear to be a map of?
Yeah, that would be Main Street.
The
that'd
thing
be
is,
our groups,
some of
the
them
groups of the parade.
are close
Yeah,
to
is that
asked
your
and
group
answered,
on
but
this map?
they're just
I
that
do.
little
Would it
teeny
be in
bit
the
different
left-hand side of
that
Exhibit
maybe
15?
it's not.
Objection.
A lot of it is
Yeah.
Sustained,
though.
hold on, sustained, please rephrase.
Where would you see, you said you saw your group, where do you see your group on this map?
On this map, our group is furthest
And they
to my-
definitely don't
my
want a
left.
Can you
retrial.
circle it? And that would be in
That's
that
a
arrow, or
very
I'm sorry, that
big
star that you
Box
circled,
of
that is
green
attached to a
names.
list of names, is that correct?
Objection. Leading the witness.
Sustained, please rephrase.
Yes. Do you see a list of names and an arrow on that map?
Objection. Leading the witness.
Overruled, you may answer.
I do.
And where does that, do you recognize the names that are on that map?
Objection. Leading the witness.
Overruled, you may answer.
Yep, I recognize all those names.
And it appears that approximately how many names are on that list?
Objection. Leading the witness.
Overruled.
Apparently leading is his new favorite
Thank you.
objection.
Didn't mean to test you. And were all those people, to your knowledge, injured as a result of
Objection,
being
hearsay.
struck by or indirectly struck by the vehicle in the parade?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled, you may answer.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. We can take Exhibit 15 down. So when you looked around and saw the red SUV, did you hear the impacts first, or did you see the?
And I
red
actually
SUV
think
first?
this prosecutor
I saw
has
the
been
red
the
SUV
worst at
just,
laying a
flying
foundation to get
on the
this
left side. I
exhibit
mean,
in.
Flying is a relative word, but it was, going fast it was going faster than anyone
History's a
in their
great
right mind would be
teacher,
driving
Steve.
in that
He's
scenario.
made that hearsay call every time.
Could you estimate the speed?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled, you may answer.
From being on that street in other occasions and kind of walking over there, the speed limit was 25. The car, in my estimation, was going faster than I would see a car driving in normal times down that street.
Good answer.
So in excess of 25 miles per hour?
Objection. Hearsay. Leading the witness.
It's not hearsay.
Hearsay, it's a clarification question. Your objection noted, it's overruled, you may answer.
Exactly.
I would say yes.
Now, when you said that you saw the red SUV coming to your left, I know you described your path of travel being on the right side of the
Exactly.
road. So it's to the left of you, would it be more towards the middle of your group or to the left of your group? Or on the left-hand side of your group?
I would say it was on my left.
Okay, so you're not sure how far away it was when it passed you?
No, it was on my left. I was not struck
But were
It was
the
on my
windows
left. It wasn't,
tinted and the horn honking?
Did you see who was driving the vehicle?
I did not.
After the vehicle, did the vehicle go past your group? Did it drive past your group?
I believe it did. I saw it just fly by, and my attention immediately was drawn towards the three people that were on the ground in my vicinity.
After the car went by, did you ever see the car stop?
I simply I saw the car fly by, and then the next thing I knew, there were three people in front of me on the ground. So my attention went right there.
Did you see anyone else on the ground after the car passed, other than the three people you initially saw?
There were other, so all around them, there were different kind of, as time played out, kind of pockets of people.
Can you describe who you saw after the car went
He's got
through
19 names to
who
go
appeared to be
through.
injured?
So the three people that were in my path were Father Patrick Heppy, and then Maria Perez, and Bill Mitchell.
Did they all appear to be injured?
Yes.
And did you meet with those people after the parade? Did you talk to
And that's
them or
it.
meet
That's
with
what
them?
I've said. So
Yeah, so
it's not proper.
my attention was
He
really
does
drawn
need to
towards,
give his grounds unless it's
those three that were kind of
blatantly
right there.
obvious.
Father Pat
But
was,
he's been so far off
was
that if
kind
he
of
just
completely
said
knocked out,
objection and left
then
it
he
up to
kind
the
of came
judge,
to,
he'd
and he was
win
kind of put on
more.
the side of the road. And then I more or less stayed by Maria Perez on the side she was in, agonizing pain. There were some other people that came. William Mitchell was also there, also with
I don't know that
severe
they have
injuries,
weird rules.
major pain. So I more or less stayed there. And then Father Pat
I mean,
and I,
their rules of evidence,
we
they're
proceeded
numbered
in the same
differently
health
than I
directory
know.
in the house. So
But
when he went into the hospital, I
they look pretty
joined him
standard.
to go. And then so my next immediate experience was going to the hospital and then encountering more of the people that were in our group who were already at the hospital.
So the three people you had direct contact with would have been Maria Perez, William Mitchell or Bill Mitchell, and Father Heppy.
That's correct.
But she was also denying his objections.
I believe that's what his testimony just was.
Correct. It's overruled.
And you went to which hospital?
So Father Pat was taken by a squad to Waukesha Memorial. So I joined them in going to that hospital.
Once
Did you
again,
see any of the people
taken by
that
squad
you had
car
observed on
because
that
there were
list on
too many
Exhibit
people
15 at Waukesha
for
Memorial Hospital?
ambulances.
Yes, I did.
What observations did you make there of the people you saw?
Yep. So immediately I saw Eileen Perales, who was sitting off to the side with some facial issues and some other injuries. So Father Pat was he was placed in a room, and I kind of was helping Eileen a little bit. And then there was also Peggy Pachulis, was also in the waiting room already when I got there.
Did she have any observable injuries?
She had her ankle was splinted already. She was waiting. And then shortly after that, then Benjamin and Elliot Hallmark.
She does have to consider all objections,
general waiting
but
room,
she also
and I ended up
doesn't have
also
to
seeing
guess
them.
what
And then
they
my
are.
next experience
As
would
she's
be
told him, there needs
with
to
the
be
different
a
situations in
basis.
families, it became apparent that unfortunately
But
some families
if it's
were
blatantly
were split
obvious,
apart in
she'll
different
just
injuries.
sustain.
I was with there was CAT scans that needed to be done on some of the children. So there were kind of 4 beds. And I was, especially with Benjamin and Elliot Hallmark.
But he's just so
the
far
first
off the
route, and
mark
then
on most of
It
them.
also turned out that Eileen and Ashley Perales also then were kind of waiting CAT scans. So that would have been my next kind of encounter.
What injuries did you observe on those individuals?
So at the time, I mean, Ashley had kind of some, you call it facial lacerations and major injuries there.
And I think you already testified about Eileen. How about Elliot and Benjamin Hallmark?
Yeah, so they were both in, at the time they were getting checked out for brain situations.
Oh,
It was clear Benjamin had kind of a major fracture in his leg, and also a major kind of golf ball kind of coming out of his eyes.
goose egg.
And Elliot also then had some injuries.
And I'm just gonna go through the remainder, and if you saw them, or either that night or in the following days, let me know, and if you know that they were injured. Maria Alvarez Dominguez.
Objection.
What?
It's hearsay.
It's not hearsay. It's asking about his knowledge, not what he heard. It's
The
so you may
injuries
answer
would
the
be hearsay.
question.
No, they were. No,
Maria
they
was
are
injured. I
not.
don't know the full scope of her injuries.
And how about Gregorio Romelia Perez?
She was very, very, very severely injured, major issues.
Could you observe what those injuries were?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overrule. You may answer.
Pelvis fractures.
He's not
and,
an MD, but
she was in rehab for about 4
he-
months with
he's not testifying
still walking with a
to
cane.
that. You
She
know,
still is walking with a cane?
he had a fractured leg at this point,
Marie
and
Loken?
this was the
Lori
treatment.
sustained
He's
some major heart issues.
he
So
is
she had a
testifying
major procedure
generally.
on her heart.
Because he
Marisol
can
Lopez
testify that he
Gutierrez?
knows they were injured.
I don't know the full extent. Marisol was impacted. She suffered I believe a wrist fracture.
But once again,
Some other
if Brooks doesn't
major
want him
soreness. She's
testifying, they can
she's
call every one of these
Javier
in,
Lopez Gutierrez?
and it would
Javier
actually
was,
have
a
more
car ran
impact
over him.
on the jury.
He didn't suffer any
This
major
is just being done for
physical
efficiency
injuries, but was
and
impacted.
compassion.
Juan Marquez?
Juan suffered a major leg fracture, has had a couple surgeries.
David Marquez?
David was struck, took on some bruising, but no major.
He
major
had to go
injuries.
through so much preparation to
Jason
remember all of this.
Objection. Hearsay.
Overrule. You may answer.
Jason's just suffered a severe concussion and some ankle injuries, an ankle injury.
Yamilet Perales Alvarez?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overrule. Go ahead and answer.
Jamilet was, came very close to losing her. Major head trauma. Was severely hurt.
Jose Perales Alvarez?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overrule.
Jose also was very severely hurt with leg injuries. He's had about 10 surgeries at this point. Still
And-
walking with a crutch.
11
And
months
Camila
later.
Perez Gonzalez?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overrule.
Camilla had an orthopedic injury. She's had a couple surgeries.
Looking further, thank you, Father.
Any cross-exam questions for this witness, sir?
I sure do. God, I hate him.
Hearsay. I don't have too many questions for you, Father.
I don't have too many questions for you. I'll just keep you another hour and a half, 2 hours. Do you know the state?
Do you recall when you knew for sure that you would be testifying in this matter?
When the state called him to testify.
I got an official word on October 1st to plan to be here, I believe, on last Wednesday.
And to the best of your knowledge, do you have any reason why you would be testifying on behalf of an injured party if you are not an injured party?
Objection.
Mr. Relevant.
Grounds.
Overruled. You may answer. If he knows.
My thought would be that as the pastor, I would have a more wide-ranging kind of knowledge of different people's situations as a pastor, where some people might. That's what I would assume.
I mean, frankly, it called for speculation. It's how is he supposed to know the prosecutor's strategy?
And you testified to observing quite a few injuries. how can you assess the injuries just by looking at the people?
He didn't treat them. He observed a lot of them. He knows
Can you
when his
clarify
parishioners
what
go
you
in
mean by
for
that? Like,
surgery.
what are you getting
He
at?
he
For
know he
example,
knew that they had 10 surgeries on their leg.
if
He
I was to see someone injured laying on the ground,
he he he, he, he
I
knew
could
they were
essentially say, oh, it
injured.
looks like
He
this.
testified they were
Mhm.
But
injured.
how can I be certain?
He didn't testify. Well,
That
she
that's
had a
what it is.
lacerated kidney
my
that
question is,
required 37 stitches
being that
and
you observed a lot
7
of injuries,
liters of blood.
how are you able to assess what they were just by looking?
He didn't.
The question mischaracterizes his testimony, so I'm going to ask that you rephrase.
How did you know the injuries just by looking?
He didn't.
It still mischaracterizes his testimony. That's not what he said. He was asked about whether he was aware.
Yeah, that he observed injuries. So how could he know
He observed some, so you need to be specific as what point in
the
time.
injuries that you saw at the hospital? How were you able to say for sure what those injuries were just by observation?
Yeah, so some of it is seeing people at the hospital, and then part of it then is, so there's the immediate seeing people in the hospital, and then there's the later times of seeing people in the hospital or seeing people in other contexts.
So would it be fair to say that you were told those injuries either by medical professionals or by the people?
He's trying to evoke hearsay, but
Exactly. So if people would say, this is my injury, I would.
But he's
them.
not
In the
testifying
hospital.
this is their
I see
injury.
people
He's
crutches,
testifying they were injured.
wheelchairs.
It's the fact that they were
that's probably
injured
accurate.
that's
But you
important.
didn't know for sure yourself until you were told.
Some of them he could observe.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not the one diagnosing an injury. I can observe what they say. I can observe what I see, and then I see people with crutches, wheelchairs,
That's
and
what I
I'm
was
like,
getting at.
there's probably truth there.
But the thing that's important is, were they injured? Because that's the element of the crime.
Some of those people after the incident, would that be fair to say?
Yes.
They're his parishioners.
Do you know
he
if
still sees them.
Any of the people you saw after the incident filed any claims in the matter?
Objection. It's
Could you clarify
irrelevant.
what you mean by claims?
Did they file for
Why would he know
to
this?
be an injured party in the matter, or did they file for any
Why would he know this?
any medical bill support or anything of that nature? To your knowledge, do you recall any of that?
Why would he know this?
We certainly told as many people as possible to get involved in the Waukesha parade support and other means of help. I can't speak specifically for each person what they did or did not do.
Can you explain to the jury what you mean by
It doesn't matter, Steve.
support
That's the
that you
thing.
are
That's
referring
why
to?
I'm so
Was that like a group
frustrated.
form, or was that
I mean,
sort of like an
with
event of a
people who did
GoFundMe account
file
or something
for
like that?
financial
Can you give some
assistance,
clarity on
crime
that?
victims assistance.
Yeah, there was the
He's like,
Waukesha
so
parade
you have
fund that was
a
like
financial
international
interest
type of
in
thing.
this. It's like,
There
no.
was, our parish had a fund.
Whether he's
There were
found guilty or
GoFundMes,
not
there
has
were
no impact on them
any
having
number of
medical bills.
different things. There were different encounters to allow people to come together and talk about what had happened and seek start healing from the emotional part of it.
And by international, that would be assuming worldwide. That'd be fair to say?
Yes.
So it would be fair to say that
I mean,
there were
and that's it.
financial
They
interests
could have
attached to
called
this
every
incident.
injured person, or at least with the minors, the parents of the injured minor.
Grounds.
But
Sustained.
in the interest of efficiency and not re-traumatizing them, they're trying to call as
I
few
say that you
witnesses
don't
as
have to
possible
do
to cover as
You can
wide a
rephrase,
breadth
but
as
as it relates
possible.
to how it was asked in this witness.
And the
I'm
thing
sustaining
is,
it.
though, for Brooks, it
Well,
would
it
be
was actually
damning if he did.
referring to some GoFundMe's being set up and anything. So my question was, being that it was a wide-ranging scope by him saying international,
What's your question? I sustain the objection.
Was there any financial interest?
That they have no
Attached to
financial
this
interest in the.
Ken, I might
They're
object to
that. This is.
Grounds.
It's vague,
It,
unclear,
it's
overly
abusive.
broad. Sustained is to the form of the question.
It's so irrelevant that. Ugh. When he leaves me speechless, that's saying
Any
something.
idea how much money was raised for
Who cares?
the
Do you want your cut?
I guess I would say GoFundMe's, groups, support
Objection as it relates to this witness
Grounds.
testimony.
It's completely irrelevant.
Well, I'll allow it a little bit of leeway as it potentially could relate to bias, not of this witness. He made no claim,
I mean,
but go
it's
ahead.
they
you
wouldn't
know.
have got this without me, so I should get my
Subject to
cut.
you following it up with other, I guess,
It's
witnesses
so
later on.
ridiculous.
I know, so the Catholic community of Waukesha had an opportunity because people wanted to give. And so there was $73,000 that came into the fund that I'm aware of, the Catholic community of Waukesha, that we dispersed in different ways. There's still, I think, 3,000 left. That's for kind of community healing events. What the end of what GoFundMe's reached, what the Waukesha Foundation fund
The thing is,
reached, I
Sai,
don't know.
one,
But I know the
like
Catholic community of
he's
Waukesha
the
was
most efficient one because he
73,000.
knows each of the 19 victims
specific. I
involved
couldn't
in the
say
Catholic
73 what,
group,
but 73,000.
and so it just takes the one witness, and because they have to get
And
everyone's
go
name
straight
in
towards
there
the
and establish
victims
that
to
they were injured.
help them
And
in
the reality is that's all it takes.
any way.
They were injured by the car.
So an
This is
example would
who
be,
was injured.
there are many
That proves up
people
a
that,
claim. So
they could not
otherwise, they
work
could have a week's
because of,
worth of testimony
being hurt,
to get what he can get
or
out in
they
an
had
hour.
situations where a loved one was severely hurt and they had to be at home or going to the hospitals, nursing homes, and taking care of them. So there was
This testimony does
and
not
I have
help
no idea
Brooks.
the ins and
I
outs
mean,
of
showing just
payment of hospital
how
bills and things like that.
damaging his
but
acts
I know
were.
people were,
The fact that people
they could not go to work
couldn't go to work,
because of
their families had to take
some
care
these
of them.
scenarios.
That they had medical bills. This is all damaging to you. I mean, it's irrelevant, but it's damaging to you.
You stated you didn't see the vehicle approaching at the time when it got to where you were. Would that be fair to say?
Well, yeah, because it came from behind him.
That's correct. It was very close to me when I saw it.
About how close to you did the vehicle come?
The vehicle was on my left side. I saw it probably, very close to when it was on me, I would say, to my left.
So you were on the right side of the street?
If-
It was on
point?
the right side of the road.
So it would be fair to say it was on the opposite side of the road from you.
No,
It was on my
He
left.
didn't say it
Where
was on the
left,
opposite side.
and
It was
if
to
you see
his
the picture of the
left.
road, like point to where it was on my left. I could not say that it was on my left.
Did it come pretty close to you at any time when it was passing you?
The car did not hit me. It was on my left.
You referred to it as a car, as you just said. Was it a car?
Seriously.
Was it an SUV? What was the vehicle?
I would describe it as an SUV to be specific.
Once again,
Any reason why you
colloquially,
would say car?
people say car.
Objection argument.
Grounds.
Argumentative. Because people
For me,
refer to
people that know me,
SUVs
I'm
as
not a car
cars.
person, so car is a wide ranging descriptor to me.
Would it be fair to say you
It's-
wouldn't call
it's
a bus
generic.
a car, right?
Objection.
It's like, well, why didn't you call it Coke? Why did you say soda?
When asked earlier, when you were asked about
He was never axed.
if you saw anyone else on the ground or something to that effect, you said as time went on, you had observed someone else
He
laying
saw
on the
3
ground?
people
Can you
hit the
explain what you mean
ground.
by as time
He
went
saw a
on? Was
lot
that
more people
significant
as
time
he
that passed, or a very short time that passed at that point? Do you recall?
My testimony is there were 3 people that were right in front of me.
saw
I
you
really
hit
spent
3
time-
people.
Father Pat then was taken to the side as he waited for a squad to come. I really stayed with Maria because there weren't a lot of people around there first. So I really kind of focused on staying with her.
He is
From
such
looking
a
up and waiting,
great
there'd be officers or, different medical personnel, whether they were, I can't say, what type of personnel there were. People would come and check and kind of evaluate.
He's
But I
definitely
could see
not
other
happy.
kind of pockets of people.
He's definitely not
Did
happy.
you observe the other pockets of people that weren't with your group being struck at any point in time?
He said his focus went to
The
his
only
group.
experience that I
He
saw
doesn't know
was-
what happened
was our
after.
particular group. At the time of the incident, I had no idea what had taken place behind us.
And would it be fair to say you had no idea what had taken place in front of your group?
As I stated, I only saw what I saw.
At any time when the vehicle was passing you, were you
Did you see the
able to
license
see
plates?
into the vehicle?
Did you see
The vehicle
was the horn
going
honking?
very fast.
It came from
So
behind him.
I would not have had a picture.
It's
of who was
hard
driving
to
the
see
you
the
can't
drivers
estimate
when they come from behind
a
you.
good speed that the vehicle may have been traveling.
He said faster than 25.
My estimation was the vehicle was traveling faster than I would usually see a car traveling down
So
Main
faster
Street.
than 25.
So over 25 miles an hour.
So would that be that you said traveling faster than you would see a car traveling down
He
Main
said
Street? Would
faster
that
than the
be in
speed
terms
limit,
of if
faster
there
than
was a parade
25.
actively going on, or
He specified. He
even
said
without
faster than
any
25.
traffic on Main Street?
He said faster than 25. The
If I
speed
was at
limit is
Main Street
25.
right
He
now,
said faster than that.
watching cars go past, if I was just on the sidewalk, I would say that the parade was traveling faster.
But once
than those
again,
cars would be
you
traveling.
didn't have the legal right to be
I'm
driving on
saying in
Main
terms
Street
of
at
even
that
if there was no
time.
parade, if it was just just a normal,
That's
just
what
a
he
normal
just
day.
said. That's what
That's
he
what I'm
just
saying. On a
said.
normal day, the
Or-
car was traveling.
He's
in my
too
estimation,
stupid to
faster
comprehend
than
what the
you'd see a
priest
car
is
traveling on a
saying.
normal day.
Mm.
And you weren't able to get any description of the driver of the vehicle?
He said he didn't see.
Not at all, no.
Besides, you drove to his left, so you would have been on the
Could
opposite
you at
side of
any
the
point tell
car.
if there was more than one person in the vehicle?
He didn't see
I would
into
not
the
have been
car,
able to
he
know.
said. And when I say car, I mean SUV. I mean red Ford Escape. Exactly. This should not take this long. But he's got his checklist, so he's got to go through it.
Do you recall being interviewed by any law enforcement at that time?
At what time?
I was at the hospital, as I indicated before, that night, and there was a law enforcement person that kind of ducked into one of the rooms and asked, a couple questions, what I would have seen, or
So very brief, not extensive, long, extensive type interview, but very brief, just a few questions.
in the hospital that evening. Yes, there was a law enforcement. That was a brief interview.
Did you give any, or were you interviewed by any law enforcement after that night?
You didn't really believe him when he said just a few.
I was not interviewed until getting a subpoena about this particular case.
I mean, I
Do you
may be
recall when
playing
you
it up a
received
bit
that
for the camera
subpoena?
side. He is obnoxious, though. He is so obnoxious.
I can't say a specific date. I can say, after that first one, October 1st was when I got the official, to report, to testify to the case. I can't remember what date it was before that.
Were you in contact with any law enforcement about this incident leading up to the October 1st subpoena that you received?
Not before I talked to the DA that first time.
He wouldn't know
Do you
how to
recall the
ask
DA that was?
questions to help him.
It was
None of this is
Susan.
impacting his credibility. I mean, the closest he got
Susan.
in this cross-examination
Does
was,
the record reflect that
I mean,
there was a right hand
he
gesture
didn't
towards the
testify
prosecution table?
on direct about being able to identify
I believe
him,
the
just the
witness
vehicle.
identified our
So
District
him be-
Attorney Susan Opper as the Susan. The record
But,
can reflect that.
But other than that, he was trying to
And was
get
that,
into,
October 1st? Tom, the
saying,
only
oh, well, you only
conversation
found
you
out
had
about
with
these
Attorney
because
Hopper?
these injuries because you were told about them. But
October
even
1st
that
was
doesn't
when I
really go
received a
against his
notification
credibility.
that I was to report to court. I spoke with Susan, sometime in the month before. We spoke once.
But in the month before
I
the
mean, at
October
this
1st
point,
subpoena?
I think, to me, there's not guilty on one count, potentially. I'm assuming it's one of the counts,
So
because
October
Lola
1st is
with
when
the
I
dancing
formally got the
grannies,
subpoena that
if there's a
I was to
count
come
for
in.
injuring
it would
her,
have been sometime in September.
the dancing
where
granny
I
who
was, notified to come in and talk to
testified
the
that she
DA.
was not injured.
So I
So
could
unless
talk
they
to
get
the
someone
DA
in to
once.
testify that she
And at
was
that
injured,
time in
that
September, you
might
weren't
be a
yet
not
subpoenaed.
guilty. But
I
other
was-
than that, he's guilty of the murders
Let me see
already.
this.
They've proved him up.
This would be a point of
I
clarification
mean,
in the sense of, I believe that I was subpoenaed to come
at
in and
this
talk
point,
to the DA.
it's
I'm not
almost
sure
like
if
he
that's
should be
a
across
subpoena
Lake
or that's,
Michigan in,
what the
in
correct wording is.
Detroit, because
I was
there's the Motown,
told to come in
Tears
and,
of a Clown. Tears of a
and talk to
Clown.
the district. I'm not sure if that's a subpoena, but I believe it would be more than come in if you want to. I believe it was kind of like, you need
That's
to
it.
come in, not if you want, you can, if not.
I
don't.
mean, in his rant
I'm not
this
sure
morning,
what the
it was,
terminology for that is.
my attorneys
but
didn't even tell
that's
me
how I
about a
would
plea
take it.
deal.
That's a
And it's
subpoena.
like, well, you probably weren't
No,
offered a
that's
plea deal
not a
because
subpoena.
it's life or
Subpoena is
life.
when you actually get
So
the subpoena paperwork by mail or I
don't-
Mr. Brooks, you need to
you're
ask a question.
arguing. Don't argue.
get to it, Your Honor.
No,
Don't
because you're
argue.
trying to define something, which would be testifying, which you cannot do at this time. So the jury will disregard his last comment, but go ahead and ask a question of this witness.
Besides, when he received his subpoena
Wow.
is so
Mr. Brooks, that
immaterial
was
to
inappropriate.
anything. He's a
Do you have any other
petulant
questions for
child.
Yes, I
this
do.
witness?
Yes,
Please
I
ask
do.
them.
During your conversations with Attorney Opper in September and October 1st, when you received the subpoena, at that time, were you provided the complaint in this issue?
That's immaterial. Why would they
What do you
be
mean by
giving him
complaint?
legal
The
documents?
complaint
They
would
don't
be
they
a
don't
reference
care if he
to
knows what the
the
charges are.
charges in this
They want
matter.
to know what he observed. They want his testimony, not his
Paperwork
advice on their legal
that would-
filings.
state the charges,
Objection made.
grounds.
Oh, Rose, he may answer if he's able.
I mean, to me, seeing what happened and seeing everyone that was hurt,
No.
to me, it was very obvious.
He's not a
what this was
lawyer.
about.
Did
Why
you
would he
see
see the complaint?
at any time any paperwork
Why
related
would
to the
he?
charges in this incident?
Why would he?
So there'd been the subpoena sheet that would have had, your name and a number of
What
different.
do you mean, my name? What are you referring to?
Darrell Brooks.
I believe it would have said Darrell Brooks.
But
on it.
he objects to
Are
the
you
use of
aware that
that
I don't
name.
identify by that name?
Objection.
Sustained.
Argumentative.
Sorry.
I mean, he's
So is
never
that
going to
what
see
your subpoena
TikTok
said?
again. So
Was that the language of your subpoena? The logistics?
We've been down this road under 90611, Mr. Brooks. You're not, I need you to ask a relevant question to this witness.
That was relevant. He said what was on his
No,
subpoena.
you've talked at length
the
about the
contents of the
subpoena. So
subpoena is
under
not
90611, move on to a new topic, please.
yeah, shake your head, roll your eyes. That helps. I would get in trouble for that.
Are you aware of who the plaintiff is in this matter?
Objection,
Shut him
relevance.
down. Shut him down. Shut him down.
Overruled, he may answer.
I believe that you would be, or excuse me, you're the defendant.
I would be the plaintiff.
Excuse me.
He's not a
You're
lawyer.
the defendant. I
He's
believe.
not a lawyer. He's
The plaintiff would be.
If you know who the plaintiff is?
All those who were hurt under the
I mean,
title
they're the
of state of
victims,
Wisconsin.
certainly.
That's how I would identify
It's a
it.
legal conclusion.
That's how you would
It's-
identify
and
it.
it's
So
irrelevant. How he identifies the plaintiff is irrelevant. He's
do
not.
you know if anybody who was hurt
Yeah,
that
he
identified as
testified
the
about
plaintiff?
19 people who were
Objection,
hurt.
relevance.
grounds?
Shut him down.
He's really not sure what the plaintiff is. He kind of guessed. He gave an assumption.
Sustained.
He
Um,
did
Foundation.
he did answer the question though.
Sustained. Next question.
I mean, I don't think he's even aware of how badly this plays to the jury. But the jury has a right to hear it. They need to know.
So to the best of your knowledge, the plaintiff would be the representative of the people.
Stop.
Objection is relevance.
Sustained. You're now asking him to make a legal conclusion, which I will not have him do. It's also not relevant.
Do you know if any injured party who claims to be the plaintiff in this matter?
Objection,
Stop.
relevance.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Shut him down.
Mr. Brooks, under 90611, please move on to a new
Thank
topic.
you, Judge.
Are you aware that only an injured party could be the
That's a
plaintiff in this?
legal conclusion.
Incident.
Objection.
Objection,
Grounds.
relevance.
Sustained also misstates the law. You don't have to answer that. Mr. Brooks, new topic, or under 90611, I will close the
The
cross
look on his face right now.
How does that mischaracterize? the
Because
law?
it's not the
An injured
law.
party has to make the
Under
claim.
90611, you haven't asked a question. I will give you one more opportunity.
It misstates the
question
law
me.
because it's not
Please
what
ask
the law
Question of this
is.
witness. The jury will disregard
It's
his
sovereign
statement as
citizen
it
mumbo
mischaracterizes
jumbo.
the law. He is not testifying, he's asking questions at this time.
Are you aware that the state of Wisconsin is an entity and
shut him
cannot
down.
claim
Shut
to
him
be an
down.
injured party in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Sustained, all right.
You're done. You
Your
were warned.
cross-exam is now closed under 90611. Does state have any redirect for this
Briefly.
witness? Go ahead.
Sir, prior to the red SUV coming through your group, did you ever hear a horn honking?
Shut.
Objection.
That's beyond the
Overruled.
scope
You may
of.
answer, sir.
Objection.
Uh,
Hearsay.
It's not
It's
hearsay.
not hearsay. It's
I
an
personally didn't,
observation.
But
That's fine. Now I'm gonna show you State's Exhibit 15 again and
I
ask
mean,
that
I
that
think
be
it's
published to the
beyond the
jury. This has
scope
already
of the
been admitted as evidence.
cross-examination, but
Go ahead.
Objection, what was the answer to the last question?
The record speaks for itself. Next, the witness can consider the annotations.
And again, you previously identified the
Stop interrupting.
individuals
Shut
in
up
the
with your
Catholic Communities
commentary.
of Waukesha box. In looking at that box again, were all those people on the road as part of the Catholic Communities of Waukesha when the red SUV went through?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
Definitely, 100%.
And we can take that exhibit off the screen. One final question. When you spoke with District Attorney Susan Opper in your meeting that you
Did she
testified
direct
to,
you on what to
did she ever
testify
tell you
about?
what to say today?
Objection, hearsay.
It's not hearsay.
Overruled.
You were trying
questioned
to
his
elicit
credibility.
that
You questioned
she
his
coached
talking
him
to
or
the state.
something.
He may answer the question.
The only
Go
reason
ahead.
why I'm objecting, Your Honor, is because
Your objections noted.
Attorney
It's
Opper is not asking the question, so
That-
how would
that
Attorney
doesn't
Davis know what
matter.
Attorney
Mr.
Opper
Brooks.
said?
I'm
That
not to
doesn't
explain
matter.
the legal procedures. Go ahead, ask the question.
You were
You
trying
may
to
answer when
insinuate
she
there was something improper with him talking with her before trial.
Yeah, I do. She did not.
They're asking him, was this
Did she tell you
testimony
to
your
tell the
own?
truth today?
Objection, relevancy.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
Everything that you testified today, is it truthful?
Objection, hearsay.
It's not hearsay.
Overruled. You may
He'd
answer.
know.
Yes.
It's
think
not a
so.
statement anyway.
You may step
Yeah.
down.
Oh yeah, shake your head, roll your eyes, raise your eyebrows. That helps. That really helps. I hope the jury's looking at you.
I would like to get
I hope
through
the
one
jury
more
sees your
witness, but I want to
history
take
on
a
it.
short comfort break for everyone. So I'll rise for the jury. Thank you.
Ugh. Okay. And with that, I'm going to take my quick potty break too. And then I'll come back and fast forward and we'll finish this off. So back in just a minute.
Mr. Brooks, not now.
Seriously.
Not allowed to.
Not
Seriously.
now. The jury is in this courtroom and you will show respect for them and for this court.
Respect for them would be.
Mr. Brooks,
Oh.
Stop. I'm putting you on notice that you are on the verge of this court
Gagging you.
creating a curative instruction about your frivolous arguments. I will not have you claim legitimacy for what are debunked, frivolous, sovereign arguments.
Then
That is why
prove it.
your questions
Prove it.
are being
She doesn't have to prove
Prove that
anything.
it's
Objected to?
frivolous.
You
Prove
prove
that
it's
frivolous.
not.
Prove it.
You
all
prove
the
it's
cases
not
that we've
frivolous.
already referenced, sir. We are in recess. We'll be back
And
in
prove
5
it.
minutes. Thank you, everyone.
I don't agree to a estoppel. Can you prove?
Okay, now that they've muted, I'll be right back. Although he's still yapping away. He's mad. He's mad. And I'm glad. And I'll be All right, I'm back. And yes, Steve, if she's not at the end of the rope, I'm not positive once we fast forward. I'm not positive he's in the courtroom. The way he was yammering even after this was muted. Luckily, we're behind so we can fast forward and not wait in suspense. So let's do that. Oh, there. Too far. But I mean that explosion right there at the end. That's just the judge has had enough. The judge is there's a reason she chastised him for his continued arguments and his continued commentary and arguments and it's just it's beyond ridiculous and he just keeps getting worse and worse because he's not getting his way and he's not getting the response he wants. So he's going to keep ramping it up, the bad
Amber,
behavior.
you just wanted to address timing.
Well, and I understand. Let me say this, Judge, the ebb and flow of this trial has been very difficult to predict, not through any fault of the court, but by events. We do
And she
have two
doesn't
witnesses
just
here
mean the
ready to
tornado
go.
warning.
If the next witness goes relatively smoothly, would you consider letting us call the second one and maybe wrapping up by about 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. If not, he can come back tomorrow, but he's been here twice already.
No, we'll keep going. I prepped the jury for that yesterday, so we're good. I'm gonna have the jury brought out. All right. Bring the jury in, Madam Clerk.
And I object to that.
What? Do you have jailhouse
timing?
bingo tonight?
Yes.
Your objections noted. We're gonna make up for lost time from yesterday.
I
Can
mean,
we adjust the subject matter jurisdiction?
No,
then,
we
since
cannot.
we're talking about that?
she's already addressed
You're not gonna
subject
address
matter
that either. That's
jurisdiction.
still not gonna
She
be
already
approved, right?
has. She already has. It's
It's
done.
frivolous stuff.
It's done.
That's gonna get pressed every time. So.
Yeah, keep mumbling under your
Not
breath.
yet to prove subject matter
She
jurisdiction.
doesn't have to
Any
prove it.
jurisdiction at all, right?
She has
The jury will
ruled on it.
disregard the comments being made by Mr. Brooks at this time. They are a mischaracterization of the law.
Absolutely not.
She has ruled.
They are absolutely not.
Seriously. The jury's in the room.
All right, thank you, everyone. Please be seated. The state may call its next witness.
The state would call Lucas Hallmark.
All right, Mr. Hallmark, if you would please make your way to the witness stand, which is on my right, up one riser. When you get there, please remain standing. Raise your right hand. My clerk,
Dinner
Teresa,
must
who's
be
on my
better
left,
at
will swear you
the
in.
jailhouse,
Do you
though,
solemnly
because
swear
he
that the testimony
objects
you're
to
about give
staying
shall be the truth,
late.
the whole truth, and nothing but the
Even
truth,
though they're
so help
staying
you
late
God?
because he's stalled
Thank you,
so
sir. Please have a
much.
seat.
I mean, if he hadn't gone on his
First thing I will
hour-long
have you do is to
soliloquy,
state your first and last
they'd
names
be
for
out
the record,
already.
and then spell each.
Lucas Hallmark, Lukas
Hold on a
Hallmark.
second. It would really help if our audio's on.
I
I'm just gonna have
That
you do
would
that
help.
again. If you would please state your first and last names for the record, and then
Lucas
spell, sorry.
Lucas Hallmark, Lukas Hallmark.
Thank you. Go ahead, your witness.
Thank you, sir. How are you employed?
City of Waukesha Police Department.
What's your
Is he going to
position?
be the
I'm a
DA?
detective
How long have you been with the City of Waukesha Police Department?
for approximately 15 years.
Has that been the entire time you've been in law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am.
Direct your attention to November
I don't know.
21st of 2021. Were you at the
There
City
had
of
been
Waukesha
talk.
Christmas parade?
I think I saw
was.
talk
Were
that they
you
would
there
today, but
in,
they have said they're
as
way
a law enforcement
behind.
officer, a spectator, or participant?
But they're getting
I was there as a
close.
participant.
They're getting
And
close.
what group were you with?
I was with the Catholic Communities of Waukesha.
Oh, so a detective in the Catholic group.
Who were you there with? I mean, other than the Catholic communities, were you with your family?
I was.
And generally, I don't need names, but was your wife present?
It's going to be
My
pure
wife and my 4
argument.
kids at the time, yes.
It's going to be a mess.
And what are the ages of your kids?
At that time, they were 3, 5, 7, and 9.
And approximately how many people were walking with the Catholic Communities of Waukesha?
I believe there was about 45 or 46 individuals that were walking with us.
I'm going to show you a photograph and just ask you if you recognize it. It's Exhibit 121.
As a reminder, the monitors in the jury box have about a 20-second delay, so we need to be mindful of that as we show exhibits to them. They do come on the screen, I think, a little bit more quickly, but there's rapid succession previously, so.
And I'd ask that also be published to the jury at this time. This exhibit has
It's going to
previously
be a
been
mess.
settled.
He's
Permission
going to
granted.
lead on direct examination every time.
Members of the jury, let me know when that exhibit
Every
comes up on the
question will be
monitors in front of
leading.
you.
It's all going to be irrelevant. Probably mostly sovereign citizen nonsense. And then cross-examination will be brutal. And I still think there's a very good chance
Whew.
he testifies.
Sir, do you know where this picture was taken?
And that'll just be a mess.
Yes, that was taken at Main Street and I believe East Avenue.
Did
Was it
she?
ta- what
She
day
said
was it
she has
taken?
two more
That was taken on
witnesses
November
here
21st,
today.
2021.
And there are boxes
don't
with
know if-
names that are associated with people through a red arrow.
I might
Do
have
you see
missed
that?
it.
Yes.
Overruled, he may answer.
Was that a yes?
Either way,
Yes.
I think
Okay.
the prosecution
And
is getting
as you
close.
review those names
Because I
and the
think
people
the
that those names
Catholic
are
group
associated
is the
with,
last he ran
is
through.
that exhibit accurate?
Objection, leading the witness.
Sustain us to the form of the question.
Sir, do you know the people whose names appear on exhibit 121?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled, you may answer.
I've got
Yes.
plenty of those, Cy.
And
Remember,
the
phantom
arrows,
pain.
do you see arrows on that exhibit?
Yes.
And
I mean, you
they're,
could also be right, Steve.
going
I
from
think
a
that
person
they
to a
are
name.
getting
Do you see
close,
that?
but they
Objection,
do
leading the
still have
witness.
the DNA
Overruled, the
expert
exhibit's previously
witness.
been received.
And I hope they get someone in to testify
Yes.
about Lola from
To
the
clarify,
dancing granny.
Jason Pekloff, do you see him in this picture?
I do.
Can you, there's a touch screen in front of you, if you can just circle where he's at in this picture. How about Camila Perez Gonzalez? If you can circle her. Maria Alvarez Dominguez. Adair Lopez Revelar. Jose Perales Alvarez.
She's done a good job with these names, the Hispanic
And
sounding
if we can clear
names.
the screen,
There were a couple I would have
and then
struggled
Juan
with.
Marquez. Thank you. We can clear the screen.
Are you done with this exhibit?
I am.
Okay, go ahead.
I could do that.
Did you
Unfortunately,
know the
there
names
are
of most, if not all, of the participants who were
the
marching with the
complications.
Catholic Communities of Waukesha that day?
Most of them, yes.
At some point, did you hear some type of commotion behind you?
I did.
Can you describe for the jury what you heard?
We were walking westbound on Main Street, and
That's the direction
near
of
the
the
area of
parade.
about 400 to 409 West Main Street. My attention was directed towards large amounts of screaming coming from behind us, so to our east. At that point, I looked over my left shoulder. At that point, there was still some folks from our group that were behind us, so it wasn't clear, but over the
And that's
tops
why
of
I'm
them, I
looking
could
into
see,
that surgery I mentioned. I'd rather
like the
cure
roof of a
pain
red
than
vehicle
cover it
traveling
up. I'm tired
also
of
to the
covering
east,
it up.
coming towards us. I'm sorry, to the west, coming towards us.
What were your initial thoughts?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
His mental impression
My initial
is not
thought that
hearsay.
came into my mind at that time when the screaming occurred was that there was probably a lost motorist and there was a vehicle traveling in the parade that shouldn't have been there.
Have you ever worked a Christmas parade in Waukesha?
He's a
Objection,
detective.
relevancy.
Overruled. He may answer.
He's a police
You said you
detective.
have.
I don't recall specifically the Christmas parade. I worked other events in downtown Waukesha.
Have you ever worked a 4th of July parade?
Objection, relevancy to this incident.
Let me strike the question.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean,
Have
it
you ever
could
worked
be
in the
relevant
city
because
of
it's
Waukesha?
about his knowledge of parade
I don't recall
operations.
specific parade, but I've worked
It's
Friday Night
crowd
Live,
control.
which is an event where they usually close down the downtown area for vehicle traffic and it's pedestrians only.
His
So that was
experience
where
with
I was
crowd
drawing
control
my
for
recollections of that
parades
incident.
could be
And
very
there's sometimes when
relevant.
there are barricades set up and a vehicle will come into the area that they're not supposed to come in.
That does occur, yes.
What would law enforcement do in that case?
Usually stop the vehicle and direct them to either stop or remove them when it's safe to do so.
Have you ever been present where the vehicle doesn't stop?
Objection, hearsay.
It's not hearsay.
Overruled.
It's
May
his
answer.
experience.
No.
I think lots of people are going to need that sigh after this.
When you said that you heard screaming, can you describe for the jury what you mean? Because we're at a parade, so I'm assuming that there's some screaming.
Objection, leading the witness.
Sustains to the form of the question.
Can you describe for the jury if the screaming stood out to you?
Yes, it was.
Objection, leading the witness.
It's not.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, it was something different than was actually occurring at the parade. And just to give you a perspective, at this point, we were actually almost done marching in the parade, which was actually a very big relief to me because I didn't want to be in the parade in the first place. So I was actually very relieved at that point. So yes, at that point, this had caused some sort of commotion that was not particularly used to that we've already incurred through the entire parade.
And did you notice anything different about your surroundings as you heard the screaming?
Objection. I asked the form of that question and it was answered.
No.
Overruled. He may answer.
Can you just repeat the question, please?
Sure. Do you notice anything other than the screaming that seemed unusual when that happened?
Objection, different question.
How dare she ask a
Overruled.
different
That's what the
question?
objection is, but you may answer.
Clear with the objection.
So after my
Did you
initial
hear him
thought
mumble?
of
Clearly
that-
a good objection.
That vehicle was
Your
just some lost
commentary
motorist
does
or
not
they didn't know
help.
actually what was going on. That thought faded very quickly, and I realized that something was drastically wrong based on the fact that that vehicle was traveling at a significant rate of speed towards our direction.
When you first saw the vehicle or the top of the red vehicle, approximately how far was it away from you?
When I first looked back and saw it, I would estimate it to be about, I would say approximately 200 feet.
That's the thing. I don't know law license
My recollection is that it was
specifically,
near
but
Korean
there are
Insurance.
jobs that
You testified
Since it
already as to
is
where
still
your position was
federally
at that time,
illegal,
correct?
Yes.
it could have an
Where
impact.
were you in relationship to the group that you were walking with?
Not that those
Where
jobs
were
are
you within that group?
imminently
Sure.
hiring me.
So our group, we were just kind of walking together behind a white banner. There was no set, I guess, method of us walking. We actually, as we were continued down the parade route, some of us moved forward, some of us moved back, depending on how the kids were doing. But at that particular time, I was near towards the back. So I would say the middle of the back of the group and more towards the center of the road.
And which shoulder did you look back over when you heard the screaming?
I turned to my left.
And that's when the vehicle was approximately 200 feet away?
I've tried
Objection,
CBD
hearsay.
oil, but
Overruled.
Yes.
it didn't
What did you see
help.
next?
The vehicle came
That damned
I recall
William
the vehicle-
Randolph Hearst.
coming right at to where we were walking. It started hitting folks in our group, and the only thing that I could remember doing was I had my 3-year-old in my left hand, and I had my 9-year-old in my right hand. As we were walking down the parade route, my 7-year-old was kind of walking in front of us at the time, and I remember realizing that we were going to get hit and it was going to come very quickly. And so I grabbed my 3-year-old as hard as I could and I threw him towards the curb. At the same time, I tried to grab Benjamin.
Imagine
at
that,
point, we throw him
throwing your
with my
child
3-year-old.
across the
Benjamin, is he
street,
the 7-year-old?
and
Yes.
that
And he was
being
in
the
front of you
sensible
testifying?
thing
Judge,
to
I'm reading the
do.
witness.
This
Um,
way.
Imagine being put in a
Overruled. Answer
situation
may stand.
of throwing your
To the best of my
3-year-old
memory, yes.
across the street.
And you stated that you had your 9-year-old in your, on your right side. What's the name of your 9-year-old?
Elliot.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. I'm sorry, what was the
Identifying
name?
the
Elliot.
victim.
Thank
Elliot
you.
Hallmark.
When you saw the vehicle and as it was coming towards you, could you estimate the speed that the vehicle was traveling?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
I estimated the vehicle traveling about 30 to 40 miles an
And
hour.
yet
What
the
is the speed limit in that area of Main Street?
prescription
25
drugs
miles per
I
hour.
do get are more
So you threw your
harmful, in
3-year-old
my opinion,
to your left,
than,
you sedated?
Towards the curb,
That
which would have
one would
been
be.
to the south.
but I don't
And
have
how about Elliot?
collateral consequences from it.
I don't remember.
Imagine that.
At that point, what happened with Elliot? As the vehicle
I missed
passed us,
this.
I don't know if he got ripped out of my arms when the
Basically,
vehicle
if
came
he
through.
recalls a
I
witness,
just remember that I
he-
kind of got, as I turned
he
to my left, I pivoted.
does
on
a
my
direct
left foot.
examination of them.
I got clipped to my left foot, and the vehicle passed us, but I don't recall what happened with Elliot.
How about Ben?
Ben, I saw him stumble and kind of roll
And to me,
from where the
it's
vehicle
not
came.
that's not a
towards
big
the
deal
curb to
to
the
me
south.
personally.
And when you said you got clipped,
But-
what clipped you?
It can be
Objection.
annoying.
It had to have been the vehicle. I had an abrasion on my left heel, and then I had just white sneakers on that night.
It
and I
wasn't
had
a rhinoceros
black
that
marks
clipped
along where I had
him.
my abrasion on that the same part.
What was that consistent with, those black marks?
I would guess
Tires.
the vehicle tire.
Rhinoceros skin.
Where was your wife?
She was standing a little bit behind and then to the left of us. So she would have been a little further at that point, a little bit further to the east and then to the south.
Now, in terms of the path that the vehicle was traveling.
Pretty
prior
much,
to it
except he
striking your
can't
curb,
lead them.
Can
He
you
has-
describe that for the jury in terms of,
The
on the
prosecution is
north
going
side
to
of the
object
road or
to
the
everything
south
as
side?
leading.
or to explain it to someone like me,
Mhm.
if you're traveling down the parade route, was it on your left? or
That's
on
it.
your
I
right?
have a 22
Objection, reading the
rifle.
witness.
Overruled.
It's inherited from my
As it
opa.
was coming
It's an
towards us,
heirloom, not
As
a
I was walking
firearm
initially, we were
to
kind of in
me.
the center of the road.
I've never
So when I saw the
fired it.
vehicle coming, I
I've
kind of
never owned
moved to the
ammunition.
left and threw my
I
my
haven't
kids to
fired
the left. So we were kind
a
of left of the
weapon
center line, so
since
to the left.
I was a Boy
As you
Scout
described, and towards the south.
a long time
But the vehicle
ago.
had passed me on my right.
And did you say that you observed anyone get hit that was behind you?
I don't
Objection,
re-
reading the witness.
Overruled.
I don't recall seeing anyone specifically getting hit. I do remember hearing sounds of the vehicle striking objects. And then the only objects in the road were people at the time.
And to me, that's just,
What happened
you know,
next?
the
What do you
Second
remember
Amendment
next?
is a thing. And
I remember turning to my wife and
to
asking
lose
her,
rights because
if all
you're
the children were
taking
okay.
medication
And she looked back at me and
is
said that
ridiculous.
she didn't know where our son Elliot was. At that point, I couldn't see him either. So I began running up and down Main Street trying to locate where he was.
Did you have eyes on your 3 other children?
I did.
And what did you do with those 3 kids?
I had those children stay with my wife while I went and tried to find Elliot.
Did you find Elliot?
It was some time after, I would estimate it to be a minute to 2 minutes after the vehicle had passed, but I had located him on the road further to the south, almost immediately towards the curb was, being tended to by some individuals that had covered him up with a blanket.
While you're looking for Elliot, did you see anyone else on the ground?
I did.
Can you describe for the jury what you observed?
There was a lot of individuals laying on the road as you look back. And I remember specifically seeing Father Pat Heppy laying on the ground. I remember he was, at that point when I had saw him, I thought he was deceased because he wasn't moving at all. So I would assume that he was knocked unconscious. I continued past, and then I remember specifically seeing a younger female who I recall to be as Yamilet Paralis laying in the roadway. And two, I thought she was also deceased because there was blood coming from like her ears, and she wasn't moving either.
Did you see anyone else before you found your son Elliot?
There was other people, but I don't specifically recalling at that particular time, no.
Once you found Elliot, what observations did you make of him?
At this point, he was awake. The person that was tending to him indicated that he was knocked unconscious. So when I had found him, he actually regained consciousness, but he was crying and complaining of injuries to his back and to his hip and to his leg.
What did you do then?
That poor kid.
Pretty much just, I was told by the individuals that were caring for him that that we needed to keep him there for safety purposes.
With a
for,
back injury, you don't move
making sure
him.
they didn't have any significant neck injuries or back injuries, and that we needed to wait there until paramedics arrived.
Absolutely. That's not a squad
Did they
car.
eventually come and
transit.
assess Elliot?
Yes, during this time I had spoken with my wife, and the decision was made that she was going to go get the car because it was, at this point, it was chaos in downtown Waukesha. And I'd actually made contact with a couple of different officers that I knew from the police department. And one of the comments was we didn't know how we were going to get a lot of these injured folks from the street to the hospital that needed
There's
care.
too many.
So the decision was made that I was going to send my wife to go get the vehicle so she can remove our 3 kids that were mobile and remove them from the scene. At that time, I didn't know the extent of the injuries to Benjamin.
And that's what I was just going to ask you about. Were there any observable injuries to Benjamin at the time immediately following?
Elliot's the one on the
conference with
ground.
The group.
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled. You may answer.
I knew that he had been injured because when I had looked over to where he was over on the curb, I had seen that he had some facial injuries, swollen eyes, some lacerations. But he was calm and he was collected. So at that point, I didn't know that there was any other injuries to him. After the paramedics had put Elliot on a removable stretcher, I indicated that Benjamin was hurt and I needed to go bring him with us when we went to the hospital. After I went over to him to pick him up, I had looked down and I had realized that he had an open fracture to his left leg.
Oh, wow. Ow.
So what did you do?
I picked him up and then we ran with the paramedics down to, they called it the casualty collection point, or the point where all the ambulances were caring for
triage
individual
point.
folks.
And did you ride in the ambulance with Elliot and Ben, or did they go separately?
We went together.
Where did you go?
We went to Waukesha Memorial Hospital.
And what happened once you were at Waukesha Memorial Hospital? What did you see?
So that's
in general?
2 severely injured
Yeah, I
children
mean-
for him.
I was working in the city. We go to Waukesha Memorial Hospital quite a bit, and I have never seen anything like this in my entire life. It was pretty much chaos. When we first got to the hospital, there was some sort of physician or EMT that was actually triaging individuals with, I believe it was permanent marker, and they were triaging individuals on their forehead of what level of injury they needed.
Giving 1,
Based
2,
on that,
3
It's kind of directed word to the
lowest number
gone
treated
inside the
first, I
hospital.
would imagine.
So when we had gone into the hospital, we were directed into the waiting room. And at that point, we were still on kind of like stretchers or backboards. We were placed in the waiting room, and we were just waiting until we could be attended to by some of the staff.
And did both Benjamin and Elliot receive treatment at Waukesha Memorial Hospital?
Yes.
What treatment did they receive, if you know?
Elliot received treatment for a severe concussion.
Knocked unconscious. That would be a severe
he had a
concussion.
severe ankle sprain. They did a CT scan. And And then with Benjamin, he ended up spending the night because the same thing, concussion, did a CT scan, but then he also had surgery on his broken leg that night.
Now, you stated initially when the car was coming towards the back of your group, you thought it may have been someone that just accidentally got on the Christmas parade route, correct?
Objection, that was not the form of your question,
It,
or answer rather.
Asked and answered, sustained.
So after having your initial thought, did your thought change at some point that this isn't a misguided vehicle?
Yes.
And what did it change to?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
asking what
After the
he
vehicle
thought
had come
is-
through,
it's not
and,
leading.
struck our group, and then as I looked back at all the carnage behind us, it was pretty. My thought then that we were involved in some sort of terrorist act. It was
Ooh, the T word.
overwhelming fear, overwhelming panic amongst everyone in the downtown.
That'll play with the jury. The T word.
After the vehicle went through your group, did you
He's
ever
gonna
observe
get
its
hung
stop?
up on
I
that.
did not.
I'm going to show you on the screen in front of you, Exhibit 140. I'm going to have it displayed in front of you and let me know when it's on your screen.
Yes.
I'm going to play approximately 5 seconds. It's a 1 minute and 26-second clip. I'm going to play the first 5 seconds and see if you recognize this video.
Yes.
We can stop it and go back to 00. Does it accurately reflect what you observed on November 21st, 2021?
Yes.
Objection to the relevancy, who took the video.
Well,
Overruled.
how does he think video of the event
Does this
is
video contain
irrelevant?
footage of the Waukesha Catholic community in the parade on that date?
Objection.
What?
Hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
I move.
Please read what hearsay is tonight. Please.
Oh, okay. I would move
Please.
State's Exhibit 140 into evidence and ask that it be published to the jury with sound.
Objection. Still hearsay.
No, it wasn't
The
hearsay
objection's
in the
noted. It's
first place.
overruled. Exhibit 1.
When you say
40
it's still
is received.
hearsay, that would
Permission to
indicate it
publish
was
is
hearsay in the
granted.
first place. The judge ruled it's not hearsay.
And I'd ask that it starts.
He's a clown.
Maybe, we'll see. I mean, it's actually at the Elks Club Lodge. It's like, see, it's really cool.
I mean, you hear random chatter, and then it's going to change to terror and screams of fear.
November 20th, 2021. What?
Oh, yeah, it's the 20th today.
Oh,
Right?
that was.
Oh, no, it's the 21st.
Ooh, so it already did already.
It happened yesterday.
Yep, it happened already. Ah, whatever. No. That's okay, whatever.
Is that thuds we hear? Or is that the wind? Because we know it's a windy day.
Oh, those outfits are so cute. Young lady, where is your winter jacket?
And now we hear screams. We can't see anything, but that's a change. That's a change in audio.
Did you see a red SUV traveling westbound in that video?
Yes.
Would that be consistent with what you saw coming from behind you on November 21st prior to what you just described?
Objection. How do we know the direction? How do we know it's westbound?
Because he
Your
testified
objection's
that
noted.
it's
So
westbound.
overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes.
So I'm going to show you some still shots from that video and just ask if they accurately reflect what you observed.
Objection to the relevancy.
It's relevant.
I have to see them. Are you gonna do that electronically or hand them to the bailiff?
I'd like to do it electronically if I can.
Go ahead.
Show exhibit 135.
I mean, he's objected to the relevancy, not the
Sir, do you
relevance.
identify that as a still shot taken
Even though it
from
hasn't even
exhibit
been
140?
identified yet.
I recognize the photo is, you're seeing is from the video.
That's
Yes.
perfect
And
indication
there are.
that he's not objecting in good
Do you see
faith.
arrows? What does this photo reflect to you? Sorry.
Objection leading the witness.
It's not asking what the
This
photo
photo
that
represents
he has
individuals from our group
is
in the
not
parade
leading.
walking in front of, I believe, Magellan's, I think.
And are there names on this diagram?
Yes.
And do they appear to be associated with people within this group?
Objection hearsay.
It's not. It's
Or-
his observation.
How is that depicted?
Objection leading the witness.
Overruled.
The names are depicted by red arrows pointing to the individuals.
Is he just
Do they
pointing to a
accurately reflect
random
the names of the
objection
individuals that
now?
they're pointing, that the arrows are connected to?
Objection leading the witness.
Overruled.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna ask that
Does he have
exhibit
a bingo
135 be
ball
admitted and
popping
published to
up
the jury.
with objections?
Objection to the relevancy.
Overruled. Exhibit 135 has received permission to
I
publish.
think he
is
has,
granted
and he's just
Keep in mind,
randomly
it's
objecting
handled
to every
to
question.
the jury. to
It's
see
not in good
that is
faith.
on the monitors in the jury box.
I mean, sometimes it is strategic, even if it's not
It
objectionable,
appears
to
that the jury
object just
now
to
can see it in front of
break
them.
their stride.
Um,
But when you object to every single
So with
question and
regards to this one, if
every
you can
one
just
of them
circle
is
Jose
overruled,
Perales Alvarez.
you just lose credibility.
Objection leading the witness.
Overruled.
Juan Marquez, if you see him. Marisol Lopez Gutierrez. Gregorio Romelia Perez. And Maria Perez.
I wish I had inherited some of my
kinda got
grandpa's
rid of,
artistic ability. You can't see
Does
it,
that
but over my
Yeah,
shoulder,
Maria's right
there's
next to
a
Gregoria.
sculpture
Thank you.
that he did.
This can be taken
Then
off.
he was mainly a sculptor, but
Next, I'm
the
going to do the
oil
exact same
painting
thing with a
above the
couple more
mantle,
pictures. The next one would be exhibit
he
136. I'll have it
painted.
shown in front of you. Let
He
me
was
know when
just
it's on
so
screen.
talented as an artist,
I see it.
Okay.
but I
If you can
didn't get
describe
that
for the
from
jury what
him.
you're seeing in
Some of
exhibit
my
130
cousins did, but
excuse me,
not me.
136.
Something very similar to the last exhibit.
I'm sorry. Was there an objection?
Leading the witness.
That's not leading. It's overruled. You may answer.
This photograph appears to be a still photo from a video, similar to the last, with names with arrows corresponding to those individuals.
And do the arrows corresponding to the individuals and the names, are they accurate?
In my screen, there's like a,
Yeah, there's a box that appears to be from
There you
the
go.
user. There you go.
Okay.
It needs to be removed.
yes, it's accurate.
Okay. And do you see yourself in this photograph?
I can see,
Okay.
I can see that, Steve.
I would ask that
I-
this 136 be admitted and published to the jury.
My amputation was my only
136 is
time
received,
spent
permission
in
to
a
publish is
hospital.
granted.
And for the first couple
Objection,
days, I
no,
was in so
no.
much pain that I couldn't do
This
anything
is
anyways. And
in the
then
video.
after that, they kept me
Well,
so
it's
busy
not
that I didn't
an
have a
objection,
chance to
that's
get
A
bored.
question, you can certainly ask that during cross-examination, but it's just I'm sustaining it. Go ahead, ask your next question.
I guess I'm waiting for it to be published.
I will do that.
Okay.
But at
And
29
then a
days,
confirmation from the jury that they can see it.
I think I would have got bored.
Sir, first of all, do you see yourself in this photograph?
Yes.
Can you circle where you're at?
Coming up on 8
Objection.
years.
No name on it.
The-
What's the relevancy of it?
The-
Overruled, you may answer the question.
That's right.
Thank you. And again, the names you've testified are associated with the appropriate people, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you circle Lori Loken? Maria Alvarez Dominguez. Ashley Perales Alvarez. Margaret Pachulis. Eileen Perales Alvarez. Yamilet Perales Alvarez. And I think you can
You-
possibly see her
Yeah,
legs.
she's wearing gray pants. I'm sorry, green kind of leggings, but you can't necessarily see her face in this photo. So, but her green pants are right there.
Camila Perez Gonzalez. And Benjamin Hallmark. Thank you. You can clear the screen. Next, I'll go to 137. And again, when we're looking at these photos, these are all from the same video. Are they from the same video?
It appears so.
Okay. And approximately what location are these taken in relationship
That's for the
to,
jury to decide.
where your group was physically impacted by the car?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled. Please answer.
This was probably about a block prior to us being struck. I think this is right around the 300 block of West Main Street, kind of by Donnie Boy's, Magellan's, Curry Insurance area.
And would this be consistent with what you believe generally the formation would have been when your group was impacted?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Learn what hearsay
I'm going to show you
is,
137.
please.
I see.
And
Please
ask you the same
learn.
questions. Does this appear to be a still shot from the video that you saw in Exhibit 140?
Yes.
And what does it depict?
Depicts Jason Petloff, William Mitchell, and
It's
Mother
the fake
Happy,
birds from fake
walking in
Australia
Great
flying
River
to
Island.
fake Wyoming.
And are there names on that?
Yes.
Are they associated with the people you've just identified
Yes.
correctly?
Correct.
I'd ask that Exhibit 137 be admitted into evidence and published.
Objection.
That's my problem,
There's
Steve.
irrelevancy.
That's why I'm
Overruled.
on this
Exhibit 137
Jurassic
is received.
computer
Permission
right
to
now.
publish is granted.
And again, if you can circle Jason Pekloff, William Mitchell, Father Happy. Thank you.
Is that to come up for the jurors?
Oh, sorry.
We'll wait.
I apologize.
Oh, and they already cleared it, I think.
He'll have to redo that. It was cleared before the jury got it, so go ahead and redraw your circles.
Can you identify Jason Pekloff, William Mitchell, and Father Happy? Thank you. You can clear the screen. And finally, 128.
He's drawing circles instead of putting X's, so that's clearly objectionable.
I believe 128 may have already been admitted into evidence. I'd ask that be published to the jury.
It may.
And do you see the name David Marquez on the screen?
Objection, leading the witness.
Overruled.
Yes.
And do you see David Marquez in the picture?
Yes.
Can you circle him? Thank you. You can clear that exhibit. I would not. Oh,
Jury does not have it yet.
At least someone's.
I'm trying.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. It now is in the view of the jury. I'd ask that it be cleared.
All right, thank you.
Finally, Exhibit 15, which has previously been admitted into evidence.
They've got to get rid
I'd
of
ask
the
that be published to
lag.
the jury.
It may.
And I would ask that they give me a signal when it's on the screen.
Oof. I'm getting tired. It's been a long day.
So Have you seen this map before?
Yes,
And what is this a map of?
this is a map of the parade route, and it also appears to indicate where certain groups on the parade route that were impacted during this incident.
And is there any type of delineation as to exactly where the parade route, where it started and where it went to?
Objection. leave the
Hopefully
witness.
one of them
Overruled.
can help at some point.
I don't see any clear delineation in regards to an
The problem
arrow,
is
but the parade started up towards
it is still guesswork as to which one
Maine and
will
White
work.
Rock and ends towards Maine and Wisconsin.
Do you see a purple line on that exhibit?
Yes,
What does that reflect?
Objection. Leave
Overruled.
the witness.
It's
the parade route.
Hold on, I'm sorry, what was your
Leave the
objection?
witness.
Leading, did you say? Overruled, you may answer.
It indicates the parade route.
Sir, direct your attention to the area where the Catholic communities of Waukesha, where there's a list of names. Do you see that?
Yes,
And are all those people that are listed in that box, were they in the roadway at the time?
Or they'll be
that, the red
inflamed
SUV went through your group?
from the
Objection, hearsay.
headache, from
Overruled.
yes,
Thank you. And again, it's, there's a line with that box that's associated with
the
this.
problem is the
a
nerve's
yellow
not in
star.
my body.
What's the significance
What?
of that, if you know?
Objection.
The
leave
non-existent nerves and the
Overruled.
non-existent foot.
that would be the general area where we were when we were struck.
Thank you. You can clear the screen, sorry. Now I'm going to go to exhibit 160. And I'm just going to ask if this, the clip is 50 seconds long. I'm going to show you
It's
approximately 20
anything
seconds
that's
of the clip and see
devastating
if you
to his
recognize it.
case. If he doesn't want it in, it's hearsay.
Do you recognize that? We stopped the clip. I'm sorry. We stopped it at 12 seconds. Do you recognize that clip?
Yes,
Does
So
that accurately depict what occurred
the
near your
carbon
group, the
fiber
Catholic community?
part that
on
goes
around
over my
21st
stump
last year?
Objection. Hearsay.
is black. You know,
Overruled.
you can
Yes.
get the flesh
I'd ask that.
color, which is hideous. Why would you
Exhibit
get that?
160
It's black and
is
has the
admitted
carbon fiber
and
weave.
published for the jury.
And then the knee is
Exhibit 160 is
Dark
received permission
gray.
to publish is granted.
there's between the knee and the foot is metal, a metal tube about that much, and then below that is my foot is kind of like, you know, the running blades people use, but then it has a heel and a foot shell. The foot shell is an ugly skin tone. The next one I want to get just totally black because I don't bother to wear a sock on it. So it may as well just blend with my
No one's
black
giving me a thumbs up. I
shoe.
just want to make sure I'm not missing something. Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Tattoo it across his other eyebrow.
If we can play this clip from 0 to 50 seconds, which is the length of the clip.
I don't want his. Like I said, I'm perfectly happy with my robot leg. I think it's cool. I'm a nerd, so I think it's cool. No thanks. Like I said, I don't like the phantom pain one bit. Other than that, it's never been a big deal to me. It just means I put my leg on in the morning.
The 4 people that you saw sliding through the
And I
screen from
figure
left to
the
right,
reality
do you
is, in
recognize those
10
people?
years,
Objection.
with the
Hearsay.
advances they're making, my robot leg will be better
I'm
than
gonna
my
show you
real
what's
leg
marked
in
as
10 years.
126, which is a still shot from that video. If you can, it'll pop up on your screen. If you can tell me if it accurately represents that video, that still shot from a video. That video.
Objection. Leading the witness.
Overruled.
They have a
Nancy.
cool one now that's it's
Yes.
a ski
And I said be
leg,
admitted into
and
evidence
so
and
it's
published
got
in the
a shock absorber
Exhibit 126 is
that
received
acts
permission to
as
publish
the
as granted.
quadriceps muscle to keep you from falling down. So they have some pretty cool stuff out there. Exactly. I'm
Sir,
cyberpunk.
do you, can you identify each of the people that are shown in this still shot by saying their name and circling their position?
Yeah,
Objection leading.
Overruled.
And the reality is
this is.
I was
I'm gonna do it by
vaguely
circling.
aware of the state of the
This is Jason
prosthetics
Petzoff,
industry. So like
on his
when
back
I
on the
arrived
roadway
at the
towards
hospital,
the south side of the road.
I had a fairly good
Marisol Lopez. kind of in the
idea
middle
of
the roadway.
the state of the
Supposed
leg.
paralysis.
I just
just
I
in front
told
of
them to
Jason,
cut it off. I
a
checked
little further
in
to the
and
west, but on
at the reception desk I
south
said,
side of the roadway.
I'm here to have my leg
And then,
amputated.
Gogoria.
I
Perez,
didn't ask them to save it. I said get rid of it.
Further
'Cause
to the west in the roadway.
I
and in the middle.
Thank you.
I knew that
One last video.
if they
Sorry, I'm gonna
saved
show you
it,
State's Exhibit
if it
154.
stayed connected to my body, it would be worse than it would be worse than the prosthesis.
5
It's
seconds
just
for you and ask you if it
is the fact of the
depicts
matter.
on what you observed on November 21st of last year.
Objection was the relevancy.
And
Overruled.
you know they've been researching sort of exoskeletons that for soldiers to wear that make them run faster and jump higher, carry heavier loads. They eventually
Yeah,
let
this
him
is,
in.
a
He's the
video
one that
taken-
murdered
appears to
his
be from
girlfriend in
Individual walking, but this is
South
like the
Africa.
aftermath of right
And
after the vehicle had come through our group.
it
Have you seen this video
he
clip
he
before?
didn't
I have.
have an unfair
Are you able
advantage,
to identify many of the people in this
But-
video clip?
they tried to
Objection,
argue
hearsay.
he did, but they
Overruled.
did a
of
lot
people
of
in.
scientific
Not hearsay.
research into it.
I'd ask that,
Go ahead.
oh, sorry, be admitted into evidence and published to the jury.
Exhibit 154 is received permission to publish is granted.
And the thing is, they do have rebound strength spring, but they can't give more than 100% of the impact of the energy that goes into them, whereas the human foot and ankle can give more than 100%. So the human foot can give actual active propulsion, whereas
If we can pause it,
the carbon
Can you go back 2
fiber
seconds?
spring
there you go.
can only give
Stopped at 11 seconds. Do you
what it
recognize that person
receives
on the ground?
and really less than what it
right there,
receives.
that's Margaret Petrulius.
And
We can continue on from 11 seconds. And stop. Do you recognize the person?
like
depicted at
I
13
said,
seconds?
this is mine.
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled screen, I'm sorry.
Let's see. So you can see I've got the spring, I've got the
My
blade,
last
but it's got
screenshot
the
is up
foot
there
shell
from last
over
time,
it.
If you want that clear.
Clear that. Thank you.
Laying on the ground right here in the blue. That's
I've been
where
taking
we
it
lock
off for the live streams because it hurts to sit that long with it jammed up into my taint.
And if you can continue on from 13 seconds. You can pause it. Did you see anyone else? I'm sorry.
Just prior to
But
that,
I feel lopsided
I could
because
see
my
where my wife
stump
and the other
is
kids were with
way
Benjamin on the
smaller
curb,
than
kind
my
of behind
other
Lori.
leg.
If we go back 2 seconds, do you think that would do it?
Yeah. So yep, right there.
And if you can circle them.
So this is my daughter right here, and then right behind her in underneath that blanket, that's where Benjamin is. He's being attended to by some of the individuals there.
Okay. If you can just say stop if you see Elliot as this goes on from 14 seconds.
Stop.
Where's Elliot?
So he's being attended to. He's right with this group of people right there.
And you recognize that to be the position you went to when you found him?
It's the projectile kick.
Hearsay, we can't see who that is.
That doesn't
It's
mean
not
it's
hearsay.
hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes.
And that was at 20 seconds. We can clear that. And continue on, sorry. If we pause, do you recognize anyone in this section of the video?
Yeah. So with the blue sneakers, he's lying this way. That'd be Father Pat Heppy.
So did your friend have
Laying
a
down
reimplant,
right here is, Maria,
hand transplant,
Perez.
or is
And
that
then,
what you mean,
being
Si?
attended by these folks in front of the banner. That'd be William Mitchell.
If we can continue on. And if you see someone from your group on the ground, if you can say pause. And we're continuing on from 26 seconds.
If they're still going live, they're getting to the point where they've got to buy the jury dinner.
We can pause here. Do you recognize that person?
Objection, hearsay.
That's not
Overruled.
hearsay.
Yeah, there's two people. Marisol Lopez is right there, and then Adir Lopez.
So
is
yeah,
right
looking
here
at the
with gray
live,
jacket.
he's still
And what's the relationship?
Brooks
to one
is
another?
still cross-examining this witness.
Mother and child.
We can continue on from 41 seconds.
So there was no way they were getting both witnesses in today before 6. There was just
I'm
no
sorry, is that
way.
still Marisol?
Objection.
We can pause here.
Pause.
Uh,
Who is that if you know?
so this is still
Said
Marisol.
objection.
Overruled.
So this last yellow line I just drew, that's still Marisol. Right here where I circled, it's being covered by a red blanket. That would be Gregoria Perez. And then over here, that would be Jason Pechloff.
I'm going to stop the video at 58 seconds. Sir, I'm going to direct you to exhibit 162. We're almost done. 2 more exhibits.
I know the video continued. I just didn't know if you wanted, because I apologize.
That's fine. Let me go back,
Okay.
sir. Let me redirect your attention to exhibit 154 where we were, which is 58 seconds. If we can publish that for the jury since it has been admitted into evidence.
At this point, it's 6:11 in
Objection. Are
Wisconsin
we going
time.
to another exhibit?
They're just.
You just said 160.
This is the last
We're
witness
back at
for the day.
154, she indicated.
That's what they did see
Okay.
in the Johnny Depp
Do
trial.
you see anyone else?
But
Or should I continue?
I
on?
don't think
we should
that's
continue playing.
Let's continue.
common, and especially not in criminal trials. But yeah, I definitely think he's the last witness of the day because she said she's willing to go to 6. But of course, everyone knew with Brooks that there's just no way they were not going to go over time. He delays so much. He wastes so much time.
Pause. So at 136, this would be Jose Perales.
Thank you. And that was at 136. Okay. Thank you. Did you viewed this video before?
Yes,
And do you know, are there any other victims depicted from Catholic communities?
yes.
Okay, then let's keep playing it from 136.
And that's it. I think it would be a due
136.
process violation in a criminal trial. I had never heard of it. The timers. So certainly not every jurisdiction does that, even in civil trials. I think they agreed on the amount of time. So it's just to me, it's completely foreign. But I don't practice in Virginia and have done very little civil and never a trial. Never a civil trial. They're definitely going over and above to make a full and complete record.
Pause.
And we
But
paused at 2 minutes and 30
she's bent
seconds.
over backwards to accommodate him, but she's also
Who do
been
you
very
identify in this
clear.
This would be
She
Yamalet
she shuts
Morales.
him down.
And let's continue.
We've obviously
2:30
gone later tonight than any other day. I had to shut the curtain behind me. That evening sun was just getting too bright in my eyes and too much glare off of me.
So this would be me right here, and then Elliot's lying down on the blanket.
And that's at 2 minutes and 41
Elliot being
seconds.
his son that
Is that correct?
Yes.
had a severe concussion, severe
Okay.
ankle injury.
Good. Now let's continue to exhibit 162.
Exactly, Steve. I agree. Do all the YouTubey things. And don't forget, bribe your friends and family.
Is it in front of you?
Yes.
Bribe your
Do you
friends and family to
recognize
do the same.
person depicted in, actually, do you recognize this person?
Yes, that's Aylin or Eileen Perales.
And is that how she appeared on November 21st of last year?
Yes.
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
And is this a picture taken from a video from the parade?
Objection, hearsay.
No, it's not.
Overruled.
Yes.
Learn what hearsay is.
I'd ask that the court admit exhibit 162 into evidence and publish it to the jury.
Objection, hearsay, and relevancy.
Oh,
The objections are overruled. Exhibit 152 has received permission to publish as granted.
162.
I'm sorry, 162. No, publish it.
They're my green.
I mean, I admitted I'm a terrible YouTuber, Steve.
If you can just let me know when you see it.
Oh. Checking to see if it's still going live. It is. It's still him. Oh, maybe. Let's see. Are they? I've got the ad, but the live chat on Law and Crime. This is just abusive. Stop.
Okay. You stated that you could see Eileen Perales in this video or this clip.
Yes.
And can you point her out specifically, her and the hat that she's wearing on her head?
I think Perales is wearing kind of like a black coat, some sort of pink leggings, and then she's wearing some sort of like maroon colored hat with white on it, like white stripes.
I couldn't tell you, Sai. I'm
If we can save this screen capture. And
at this
would be
point. I'm just going loopy.
162A.
I can't believe
Objection, relevancy.
looking.
Overruled.
I'm looking
Yeah,
at
I
the
think then
actual
162
real-time live feed
capture.
on my phone because we're still behind here. They're still on this witness on his cross-exam, and it's just
You can clear that, Teresa.
And then I'd ask to publish exhibit 92, which
ridiculous.
has previously been admitted
It's
into evidence.
purely ridiculous. Mind burnt. I'm slap happy. I'm
You
just.
see the hat that's in.
It's 6:18 in Wisconsin, and they're still going. That's it. I just checked it on my phone, muted, and at this point that they can't,
Sir, in
like,
terms of the
they had the jury
appearance
in
of
at
that
8
hat, I'm not
o'clock
gonna
this
ask you if it's the
morning.
exact same hat
This is
that was
such
on
a long
Eileen's
day. I
head
don't
in
know
Exhibit
how.
162,
I
but is
do
the
not
same,
know how the jury is
um,
still paying attention.
is that the same type of hat in terms of, has the same wording on it, same color, same palm color as the hat that Eileen was wearing in Exhibit 162?
Objection, hearsay.
It's not hearsay.
You may answer.
He can
It looks
testify
remarkably
what he
close,
saw.
same color, same patterns of the lines.
And we saw this
the
hat
writing,
picture
and then,
earlier, but it was
with the top on
successfully
it.
objected to.
Yes.
I can't remember why. I think it was a police officer's testimony. Oh,
All right, you're crossed, sir.
all right, buckle up.
So you saw all those videos that were shown, all
And doesn't that
exhibits
bailiff,
rather,
deputy,
all 12,
whatever,
13
look
of
like
them. You
Howard
saw all
Hamlin
those before today?
from Better
I
Call
don't
Saul?
recall there was 12 videos. To best of my knowledge,
126, 15.
Let him answer. Don't interrupt him.
135, 140, 128, 160, 154, 162, 92. At
You
least
haven't
11
let
as
him
well.
answer the
Mr. Brooks, I'm
question.
going to strike your comment because you cannot testify. You did not let him answer. Let him answer first, and then you can ask follow-up. The jury will disregard the statement made by Mr. Brooks. Go ahead.
They just, tomorrow morning,
I
they
believe there
can't
was only 3 or
start
4
as early
videos,
as
but
they
there was
did
numerous
this morning.
screenshots or photos taken from those
I mean,
videos.
the prosecutor
said
did
exhibits.
ask to start at 9 o'clock tomorrow
Have you
due
seen
to
all exhibits
other court
before
commitments.
today?
But just for
I
the
had
jury, they're
seen
going to
those
have
exhibits,
to.
yes.
And do you know who took any of those exhibits?
He
the
definitely
videos or
does not
still
like
shots?
him.
No, sir.
I mean, I don't have kids. You injured my
So how
niece
were
or
you able to
nephews
see him?
that way. I would be looking for reasons to
Can you rephrase
tase
the
him.
question, please?
How were you able to see him if you don't know who took them?
Calls for a legal conclusion.
I saw him on the screen. I'm not sure I'm following your question.
Before today, you said you saw him before today. That's what you just said.
So
I'm asking.
So
I
he
asked
was
after
shown
that,
by
do
the
you know who took 'em?
prosecutor.
You said no.
He
So
does.
how could you?
Who showed them to you?
I guess I'm asking, how would you know if you don't know who took these videos?
He doesn't have to know who took them.
How were you able to see him before today?
I believe they were collected by the police department as evidence.
And that's how you saw him?
That's how we were able to view him afterwards, yes.
He
you know
is
when
so
you viewed him?
stupid.
I don't recall.
Did you view all 12 of them in their entirety at the same time, or were they at different dates?
Yeah, back to the form of the question.
Grounds.
Did you
Let
view them all
her
in their entirety?
finish.
Again, it makes it seem like he's referring to videos. And if he is, that's fine. If he could just clarify videos or exhibits.
Sustained as to the form of the question, please rephrase.
Exhibits.
Can you just repeat the question, please?
At what time did you see all the exhibits in their entirety? Was it
Exhibits.
the same day, or was it different days?
I don't recall specifically. I just reviewed the exhibits, the photos, not the videos, but the photos, as you're explaining in these exhibits prior, just in preparation of my testimony.
In preparation of your testimony? What do you mean by in preparation of?
It means he prepared to testify.
Preparing my testimony for court, making sure that everything that maybe kind of recall my anything to that nature, making sure that
The fact that
everything's
he's
accurate and-
so
and
mild-mannered in
testify
his
to.
testimony is
If
a credit
everything
to
you're going
him.
to testify to is truthful, why would you need to prepare for it? Grounds.
It's
Sustained as
argumentative.
to the form of the question.
Why would you need testimony preparation?
Because he likes to be prepared.
This is a pretty significant incident. I wanted to make sure that I was prepared fully for being here and testifying.
Wouldn't it be easy to just come in and recount what you saw?
No.
Objection, argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained. Please reprise.
Is it fair to say that it would be fairly easy to
Do you mean the Rick
To state
Martin
what you saw
one
that-
where the
that
judge got after the
Yes.
person he tried to represent? This isn't a Burger King. You can't have it your way.
So why exactly did you feel the need that you had to prep yourself?
Objection, argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained, also asked and answered.
Exactly. It was on more than just Mike's channel. That was on
I'm gonna direct
all
your
the
attention
channels.
to
It was
Exhibit
on
154, which is a video. So that's
the-
clear for the record, not a still frame. It's a
what's
video.
the A&E
You want to put up for him?
I want it put up for him.
All right, it's been received before.
court cam? It was on court
Put
cam.
it up, please.
It was on
Can we
everything.
go to 41 seconds?
Sure.
And that was
Thank
the
you to
fake
the state for
guru
assisting.
Rick Martin.
41 seconds, you said?
41 seconds. Is it fair
Do
to
you-
say
hold on, do
that?
you want to wait until the jury has it in front of
Yeah,
them?
yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
It's okay, there's a delay. Sometimes it's long, sometimes it's short. Seems to be long right now.
It's because even the technology is tired of your
All right, we're
nonsense.
good, go ahead.
So in this exhibit, which is a video that's paused at 41 seconds, we can see two people laying on the ground. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
So you want the jury to see
Can
the
you
people you injured
See
again?
any of the two people's faces right now as it's paused?
No.
So it would be fair to say that you can't positively say who that is from this part of the video that's paused right now.
From this exact point.
Well, based on my experience, based on clothing descriptions,
He
obviously Idea and
saw what they
Marisol
were
are mother and
he
child.
saw what they
and
were wearing.
body structures. That's how I'm able to identify who they are.
He
What
saw
do you mean by body
earlier
structure?
what they were wearing.
Well, Idea is a little bit
He could-
smaller, and
He
Marisol's,
doesn't need
a
to
little
see
bit
their face
larger,
at
and
this
that's
specific
how I have
instance.
memory of
Besides,
who
this
she
is a
is.
still
Would you agree that
of
they're
a
kind of
video.
like bunched up, like kind
This
of
is a
balled up?
still of a video. How
I would agree that Idea is, yes.
Can you see faces?
No, sir.
I definitely watched Middleton. The Rick Martin,
So
I
it'd
think,
be
was
fair to say that
before
you don't know
Old
for
Squishy
sure who that
Gardner
is.
had his channel even.
I'm pretty confident that's Marisol.
Because
and
it was a
Idea.
while ago.
Pretty confident?
I'm very confident.
So why not be very confident the first time that question was asked?
Argumentative.
Grounds. Grounds.
Sustained.
Let's go to 58 seconds and pause. Right here in front of us, we see three people kneeled down. We see someone with a pinkish
Okay, it's over live.
blanket covering them, and we see a lady with a black coat
Finally.
with a white kind of like top to it. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Can you see the face of the person laying on the ground under the pink blanket?
No, sir.
Would it be fair to say that you don't know for sure who that is?
Not at this point.
As I described before, I'm very confident that that's Marisol that's laying on the ground.
And how can you tell that from the picture that we're looking at now?
But this is a
Well, not specifically just
video.
from this picture,
This is
but
a
like I
video.
said before, as
It's
the video
not
was
a
moving,
static
you
thing.
can see clothing descriptions, body structure, who she's laying next to.
Is it fair to say that the exhibit is not moving right now? It's paused.
Yes, sir.
And it's paused with not being able to see who's under the pink blanket. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
So how can you say for sure who that is?
She is an amazing judge. She is so good.
If I was to just view this video or this photo
She is what
without any other
judges should
context,
be.
you're probably correct. I probably wouldn't be able to identify any particular person, but because
But
of the
he
video
has
and
other
how it moved and
context.
how I was able to see people.
He
I was
has
able to
other
confirm
context.
that
He was
I've been there,
there. He
so.
saw what they were
And
wearing.
you came to that conclusion because you've seen these videos before today.
He
or
was
these
there
exhibits,
and
rather,
saw
before
what they
today.
were
Would that be fair to say?
wearing.
I
He
come to
was
the
there
conclusion with my
live.
memory of being there at that night.
But you did state, just so we have clarity, that you in fact saw these exhibits before
He
today. Would that be
did,
fair
but
to
he
say?
didn't say that's where he learned about
No.
this from. He was there.
Oh, it has been asked and answered, but I'll let the witness answer that question again.
Yes, sir.
Towards the, I don't know where that direction would be. I'm guessing that would, if you're looking at it the way I'm looking at it, it'd be towards the right.
Right
You
this way?
can, we're coming back a little bit more,
She
right where the lady
is
with the
doing what
white
she
coat
needs
is.
to do.
Mhm.
She,
You see a few people, it
I
might be,
mean,
it looks like three,
I probably would have
kneeled
stopped
over
his rant
someone that
earlier this morning,
is
but she just wanted to
under a
let him get
blanket
all of
with,
it out.
it looks
Just
red with like
she doesn't want it
snowflakes or something
overturned on
on it.
appeal.
You can see like a black, I
She
don't know if that's like a
realizes
shoe
giving him a
or,
little extra time right now saves a lot
I'm
of
guessing
extra
that's a
time in
shoe
the
or a boot or
future.
or something to that effect. Is that
So
fair to say that you can see that?
I just think she's been
Yes.
so good. If he were
Can you
represented by a
tell who that
lawyer,
is just looking at it right now?
they'd be on the defense
Well,
case
I
by
know that that's
now.
Gregory, I guess.
Can you tell who it is looking at it right now? Can you see their face?
But
Can you identify them
I
right
think
now?
she's been
I
excellent
cannot see their face.
right
So
now.
it'd be fair to say
It's
that
almost
you're not
like he's
sure
pausing
who that
it
is.
at points where faces aren't
I am
shown.
sure who that is.
And you come to that conclusion based on
Because he
what we're
saw
looking at right
them.
now at this moment.
It's because he was there
Grounds.
and he saw them.
Witness's testimony.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Let's go to 136. Same exhibit in pause.
Wow.
Is it fair to say we can see someone with laying on the ground? They have like a bluish jacket. You can only see one arm, so the sleeve. The jacket is blue. It looks like they have like a red, something red next to, which is obviously a lady in a gray jacket, white hat. A guy in a red, looks like a hoodie, and someone else to their right, I would say.
He
and a
is
jacket
so
and a cap with a, looks
inefficient
like a
at
baseball
asking
cap.
questions.
Would it be fair to say that you can see that?
Yes.
And the person that's laying on the
He's
ground,
guilty of sin.
can you see their face?
No, sir.
He's guilty of sin. Sometimes
So would it
all
be
you
fair
can
to
do
say
is
that you
make
don't know
sure
for sure who that is?
their rights are upheld, that they receive a
I'm sure
fair
I know who that is.
trial, and that the
Based on what we're looking at
state
now, you
has
can
to
tell who
prove its
that is.
case.
Based on my recollection of the incident that night, I know who that is.
Based on what we're looking at right now on the screen,
He
can you
knows
tell
who
that
it is.
You
Yes,
can
sir.
see their face.
He. This isn't in a vacuum.
I
He
know who that
knows
is. I
who it
cannot see their
is.
face.
He was
So
there.
it'd be
He
fair to
saw
say
what
from
they were
in
wearing.
this picture, you're not sure who that is.
He knows who it is.
Grounds.
Witness's testimony.
Sustained.
To the right of the screen, right here. Can't tell how many people is kneeled down right there, but it's obvious that they're
It's obvious.
attending to somebody.
It's
Would that be
obvious.
fair to say?
Yes.
Can you see who that is that they're attending to in any way?
Not from this vantage point, no.
So it'd be fair to say that you don't know who that is that they're attending to,
At
correct?
this point,
I know who they're attending to.
And you can tell that by what we're looking at right now?
He was there. He has
Grounds.
other
Testimony
information.
testified as this video was going through, who he believed each person was.
Who he believed, but we're looking right now.
Mr. Brooks,
You
let me rule on
stopped
the
it.
objection.
At this point.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Thank you. Overruled, he may answer.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Can you tell from what we're looking at right now? Can you tell who that is that they're attending to?
You cannot see that is Jason Petroff behind
It's
them.
ridiculous.
But that is who is laying on the ground right there.
And you can tell that by what we're looking at right now.
He's not
You
in
can
a
see who
vacuum.
that
He
is.
has.
No,
he was
based on my
there.
recollection
He
of the
saw
incident,
what people
is
were
why I
wearing.
know who
This
that is.
video
I'm saying referring to what
isn't
we're looking
his.
at, not
What
the
he
recollection.
lived.
What we're currently looking at right now. Can you tell who that is that's being attended to?
I'm
from-
shocked.
Based on
I'm
what we're looking
absolutely
at
shocked
right at
that
this moment.
he's
You
complaining.
cannot see who the individual is.
Can we go to 2 minutes and 30 seconds and pause? Can we erase that circling arrow?
It's been done.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right in front of us, we can see
He's going to drive me to drinking.
a group of people
This-
standing over someone who appears to be laying on the ground. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
It looks like they have a Scooby-Doo blanket over them. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
By what we're looking at right now at this moment, can you
can't
tell
believe
who's
it.
under the
I
Scooby-Doo
cannot
blanket?
believe it.
I know who that is.
Can you tell by what we're looking at this moment? At this moment right now, can you tell who's under the Scooby-Doo blanket?
He knows
No, sir.
because he was there.
Can we go to 241 and pause?
He's hung up on what the video shows, but the video isn't a vacuum. The video is not the
Would
only
it be
thing.
fair to say that right now we're looking at what appears to be
I don't
could
blame you,
be
Steve.
police
I
officer,
really
some
don't.
kind of law enforcement, could be security guard or anything.
If
but
I
some
don't
type of
finish
law
now, I'm
enforcement.
not coming back to it though.
We see someone. It looks like a woman who you can't see the top of her head, but you can see like her chin and her
Are
bottom
you
lip has
testifying, Brooks?
black jacket. And right in between those, the law enforcement and the woman, you can see that someone's laying on the ground, and you see three people attending
His
to them. Would
direct
that
is
be fair
going
to
to
say?
be
Yes, sir.
Can you tell by what we're looking at right
unbearable.
now? Can you say exactly who that is?
100% confident because I'm in that photo.
And is that you standing over in front of him?
I'm standing over my son.
Or not standing, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Kneeling in
Good
over
judge.
the top of who's on the ground.
Good judge.
Yes, my son is crying because he just got struck by a vehicle and I'm trying to console
But are
him.
you
wasn't the
100%
question.
sure that's your son?
That's you kneeling over with the hat, and it looks like a grayish. I don't know if that would be a hoodie, but looks like it's some like bluish black to the sleeve.
Once again, he's going to
That'd
have
be you.
7 fatalities because he's
I'm
killing
wearing a gray
me.
sweatshirt. My son is wearing the blue jacket.
I could be mixed up. I apologize for that. So it would be safe to say, by what you just said, you were 100%. You were adamant, 100% that you knew who that was.
Mhm.
Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
But you didn't have that same enthusiasm for everybody else that we were just looking at. Would that be fair to say?
Objection. This characterizes this witness's testimony.
Grounds.
Sustained. It's also argumentative.
Very.
And out of all the exhibits,
Are we done with this exhibit?
oh yeah, we're done, I'm sorry.
All right, just take it down, Madam Clerk, thank you. Go ahead.
Out of all the exhibits that you were shown during the initial questioning, you're not sure who took any of those videos?
No, sir.
There was quite a few exhibits that were shown. Would that be fair to say?
No.
Yes.
What's quite a few? They're so done.
And do you recall exactly the estimate of how far the vehicle was from you when you first saw it?
When I first saw it, that's when the initial scream started. I think it was about 200 feet behind me.
And how did you come to that estimation of distance?
When I first saw it, I believed it, my recollection that it was kind of near Curry Insurance. So I would take that as like almost like a half city block. So it was on the other side of Maple Avenue. So I just estimated that based on my experience with feet.
So you felt that that estimate was accurate?
I don't know.
Or did you know?
So
for
your
sure?
testimony
No, I don't
is
know for
that
sure.
Artie and Natalie put you to sleep.
You stated that your 9-year-old was in your right hand and your 3-year-old was in your left hand. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Don't call him sir.
You
That's
stated
too respectful.
at some point that your 9-year-old was ripped, or you didn't know if your 9-year-old was ripped out of your hand. Can you explain
He's
what you mean by
incapable.
ripped?
He's so inefficient at his
To the
questioning.
point where I lost contact with him is about the
that-
point where the vehicle had come through. So I didn't know if it was the force of the vehicle taking him away from
He'll
me
have
that
access to a
forced our hands to be
lawyer
separated,
whether he
or
takes
if we had
one or
just
not.
separated hands prior to that.
I couldn't
But,
tell you.
Based on my recollection, it was simultaneously as the vehicle had passed through us.
But he should
And was
have
the
access to a
9-year-old,
lawyer.
injured?
Yeah, Elliot was thrown in the air and he was knocked unconscious.
Good idea.
And what happened with your 3-year-old that was in your left hand?
I threw him with my left hand towards the curb. He did not get struck.
When you say threw him, what do you mean by that? Was it
I was holding on to it.
a
Sorry.
quick toss, or was it like a harsh push, or define thrown?
Thank you,
I picked
Steve.
him. I was holding on to him with my left hand.
As I
I
said,
grabbed him
I'm
off
a
the air and threw
terrible
him as far as I possibly
YouTuber.
could because I knew
I
he was gonna
forgot
fly.
about
Do you
extra
recall if he was
speed.
hurt in the throat?
Objection.
Browns.
Overruled, he may answer.
I mean, if he
I
was
didn't
hurt
actually
when he
see
was
him
thrown,
that night.
that
'cause I
adds
stayed with my
another
other son at the
victim because you
hospital.
caused it.
But as far as my recollection,
talking
I don't think he was
double
injured from
speed
that,
too.
no.
Even though it's
Other
completely
than that, was he
unnecessary.
injured in any way?
I can't.
No.
I can't do it. I realize I'm a slow speaker. I
You
just
made
can't do
reference
it.
to the speed. How did you come to that estimation of speed? Do you have
Because
any,
he's seen
expertise in
cars
speed
drive
analysis
before.
anyway?
He's seen
No,
cars
just my
drive before.
experiences driving as a motorist and being in law enforcement for 15 years, estimating vehicle speeds.
So it'd be fair to say you don't know for sure.
That's correct.
He's not an expert witness. You've had expert witnesses testify you were going over 30.
And I assume that you were interviewed by other officers at some point. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall if it was that night or if it was in the following days?
Well, the night of the incident, I informed my department that I had been involved in the incident. So I reported it that night verbally, but a statement was later given to the department in a more formal matter.
I do not know Wisconsin appellate procedure.
And you already stated that your 9-year-old son did get struck. Did you actually see that?
Destruct?
I did not see him get thrown in the air, no.
Oh, he got struck.
Even though you had him in your right arm, or right hand rather.
He was ripped
Correct.
from his. Seriously.
Did you see where the vehicle went after it passed you?
I did not.
Did you see anyone else get struck?
Well, he wouldn't
once it passed you?
bring an appeal in
not.
Nevada, but I don't know. I've never done appellate work, so
In a summary of your report, do you recall stating to the officer that you were interviewed by that you saw a second unconscious person laying on the ground that you further described as a Hispanic female?
Yes, sir.
Would it be fair to say that in your testimony here today, you gave names? That'd be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
he knows people's names.
Why not in the summary of your report did you give names and just
He
say
didn't write the
a Hispanic
summary.
female?
He didn't write the summary.
To the form of the question, he's indicating that it's Detective Hallmark's summary in this report. It's not been established. Okay.
This is the form of the question.
I was referring to him already testifying that he had knowledge of everybody that was in his group.
Rephrase your question, please.
At the time of your summary, did you know the identity of the Hispanic female that you referenced?
An objection to the form of the question. It's not his summary per
Ground.
se.
It's
Brown.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
So should I say in the summary that you gave
he didn't give
Do
a
you recall
summary.
that comment?
He
Judge,
didn't
this
give
characterizes
a summary.
The summary.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form of the question, please rephrase.
In the summary that was given by the officer that you gave the report
He
to,
doesn't know the summary. He didn't give the
do you
summary.
recall that
Yes.
statement?
I'm sorry.
I am going to object. The witness has answered the question. Again, I would just indicate for the record that I believe what Mr. Brooks is looking at is a different officer's report that summarizes the statement that that officer received from Detective
Needs to
Hallmark.
be
With that understanding that
expelliarmus.
that's what it
Disarm
is.
him. Get rid of
I would
him.
ask Mr. Brooks to maybe ask his next question with keeping that in mind.
Objection to being called that. I don't identify by that name. Nor
Who
consent to being called
cares?
that name.
You're
And
done.
I
Next
made
question,
reference-
sir.
I made reference that it was
Next
by another
question.
officer.
Next question, please.
You made reference to your son being attended to by 2 men. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
At the time of the incident, did you know who those 2 men were?
No, sir.
How is that relevant? How does it matter?
And when did you learn of the identity of those 2 men?
Did he say he learned the
It was a
identity?
couple days after the incident. I learned the identity of one individual that was attending to my son.
Do you know if they, or do you recall them giving you any additional information that you didn't have that night?
They've got to
Yes.
call him something.
Do you recall if
I mean, I think he'd object to the idiot
were
sitting at council
active
table.
participants in the parade or just spectators? Did they give you that information at any time?
This individual was a spectator.
To your recollection, did the spectator tell you where they were positioned at when they attended to your son?
He
Yes.
wasn't. That are you trying to elicit hearsay about what the spectator told him about where he was at the parade and what he saw? The problem is it's too mild.
And who is Charles?
That'd be my 3-year-old.
There are certain words that are
and
considered
Benjamin.
impolite here in the U.S.,
That'd be my
but
7-year-old.
Australians like to use that I think would be
Do you
appropriate,
recall
but I won't say
what
right
happened
now.
with Benjamin when you saw the vehicle approaching?
Yeah, he was run over by the vehicle on his left leg.
And he had a
Do you at any time
compound
recall
fracture,
making a statement
compound
to
open
the summary that was
fracture.
given by another officer? Do you recall making a statement, you threw Charles and Benjamin as hard as you could towards the south curb?
He tried to get
Yes,
them
sir.
out of your way. He thought throwing his 3-year-old child
If you
would be less
you already
destructive
stated
than
that
being hit by
threw your
you.
3-year-old, which you just said was Charles, and you also just acknowledged that you threw Benjamin.
Objection at
4-letter word for
characterization. He
lady
acknowledged that the
part.
summary that Mr. Brooks is reading said that he threw Benjamin.
He answered the question.
You did not. I believe there's an objection. I'll sustain it as to the form of the question. Please rephrase. It also mischaracterizes well, I'll just leave it at that. You may ask your question.
Okay, Steve, I think you were wrong. This calls for
So
one
did
and a
you
half
throw
speed.
Benjamin as hard as you could to the south curb, or did you see Benjamin struck by the vehicle?
So when the vehicle was coming and I threw Charlie, I knew that Ben was in front of us. So it was the same motion with my left arm to get Benjamin and Charlie out of the way. Obviously, I
He
didn't get Benjamin
tried
completely out of the way
to
of the
get
vehicle.
his children to safety.
Any idea why that was not in the summary?
I don't recall.
Brown?
He didn't make the summary. He gave a statement. He doesn't know what's in the summary. The detective that took his statement wrote the summary.
Besides your children, the other people that you observed injured, did you immediately receive information what those injuries were at that time?
Can you repeat just to be clear of who you're talking about?
He didn't testify what
The
their
other
injuries
people that with your
were.
group, not your children, but the other people that were with your group. Do you recall receiving information about their injuries at that time?
I did not receive information about their injuries.
He didn't testify about their injuries.
So it'd be fair to say you knew that they were hurt, but you didn't know the severity of it.
Exactly.
Is that a yes?
Yes, sir.
Although I do thank you for reminding me about the possibility. Even this, there's interminable breaks.
And besides your children, who else was with you when you attended the parade that evening?
Yeah, they
Well, it was
don't
45 of us
have a
that were all together.
prohibition of double jeopardy.
But to go down to the parade, it was
That's a
me and my
U.S.
immediate family,
thing,
so
as
it
far
was
as
me,
I
children, and
know.
wife.
Do you recall your wife being injured in any way during the incident?
No.
He didn't testify about her being
Do you,
injured.
do you recall where she was when the vehicle passed you?
Yes.
Was she directly next to you, to the side of you, standing right next to you, or do you remember the general area she was at that moment?
Yeah.
You could have just asked,
She was further
where was
to,
she?
kind of as we're marching, as you see in the video, further to the left and then behind.
And she didn't report any injuries of any kind.
She said she wasn't injured.
She was, I believe she was 6 months pregnant at the time.
He already
she went and got
said
checked
she
out just to make
wasn't
sure she wasn't
injured.
No, she wasn't injured at all.
But, good job on not hitting his wife.
No further questions.
You're pretty much a saint for missing her.
Real brief. Sir, the identifications that you made in the exhibits that were shown to you on direct examination, are you 100% confident in those identifications?
Objection, hearsay.
It's
Overruled.
not
You may
hearsay.
answer.
It's asking if
What
he's
is that,
sure.
My recollection of the incident.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, thank you, sir. You may step down.
Ah.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you so much for your patience, as it was the court who wanted to keep moving a little bit tonight. I know we're a little bit late. I will read the instruction, and then you will be dismissed for today, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Do not begin your deliberations and discussion of the case until all the evidence is presented, and I have instructed you on the law. Do not discuss this case among yourselves
He's
or with anyone else
maddening.
until your final deliberations in the jury room. This order is not limited to face-to-face conversations. It also extends to all forms of electronic communications. Do not use any electronic devices such as a mobile phone or computer, text or instant messaging, or social networking sites to send or receive any information about this case or your experience as a juror. If you come in contact with the parties, lawyers, interpreters, or witnesses, do not speak with them. For their part, the parties, lawyers, interpreters, and witnesses will not contact or speak with the jurors. Do not listen to any conversation about this case. Do not research any information that you personally think might be helpful to you in understanding the issues presented. Do not investigate this case on your own or visit the scene, either in person or by electronic means. Do not read any newspaper reports or listen to any news reports on radio, television, over the internet, or any other electronic application or tool about this trial. Do not consult
got his
dictionaries,
Bible
computers,
there,
electronic applications,
that's what's
social media, the
important.
internet, or other reference materials for additional information. Do not seek information regarding the public records of any party
I
or
really
witness in this
think it's
case.
there to
Any
play to the
information you
jury.
obtain outside the courtroom could be misleading, inaccurate, or incomplete. Relying on this information is unfair because the parties would not have the opportunity to refute, explain, or correct it. Do not communicate with anyone about this trial or your experience as a juror while you are serving on this jury. Do not use a computer, cell phone, or other electronic device, including personal wearable electronics, applications, or tools with communication capabilities to share any information about this case. For example, do not communicate by telephone, blog post, email, text message, instant message, social media post, or in any other way on or
Yeah,
off the
roll
computer.
your eyes
Do
there.
not permit anyone to communicate with you about this matter, either in person, electronically, or by any other means. If anyone does so despite your telling them not to, you should report that to me. I appreciate that it is tempting when you go home in the evening to discuss this case with another member of your household, but you may not do so. This case must be decided by you, the jurors, based on the evidence presented in the courtroom. People not serving on this jury have not heard the evidence, and it is improper for them to influence your deliberations and decision in this case. After the trial is completed, you are free to communicate with anyone in any manner. These rules are intended to assure that jurors remain impartial throughout the trial. If any juror has reason to believe that another juror has violated these rules, you should report that to me. If jurors do not comply with these rules, it could result in a new trial involving additional time and significant
And
expense to the parties
nobody
and the
wants
taxpayers.
that.
You are to decide the case solely on the evidence offered. in the
I mean,
scene
that
of the trial.
alone
With that,
is-
you are excused for the evening. All rise for the jury, please.
Enough to stop the jury from. I mean, if anyone tries to talk to him, they'll be like, this fuckwit doesn't deserve a second trial. Shut up. Oh. My head is ready to explode just from, this is such a long day. I can't, oh yeah, roll your eyes, shake your head. At least the jury can't see it this time.
I just have a couple of housekeeping matters. Please be seated. My recollection, there's been a couple of exhibits that were annotated and captured that I don't know were specifically moved in. I'd ask the parties to look at that and let me know if there's any requests as it relates to that.
There were a
also
couple that
want to
I had
provide the
questions
parties,
about.
With a copy of an incident report. This relates
An
to an
incident
incident
report.
last week from the 6th.
Oh, from when
where I
he
told
got
the
his boo-boo
parties,
on his finger?
or I asked the sheriff's department to provide me with a report regarding the incident with Mr. Brooks and being removed from the courtroom. And I believe he may have even filed like a use of force form or something like that. But I wanted to have it notated or
He
noted
is
in the
such
record.
a
And
baby.
so that incident report has been filed with me. I have a redacted report
Oh.
so that the sheriff's department is in compliance with that. The parties are getting an unredacted report. The unredacted will be kept on file, but sealed, and then the unredacted will be and the redacted will be what's available for the public, should anyone request that. So that's one thing that's coming. Then, just as a courtesy, even though I'm not required to do this, sir, I did follow up on your inmate communication form with our clerk of court, Monica Paz. She has.
Once again, she's going over and
I
above.
have the response here, and I'm going to provide that for you so that it's notated on the record. And so there's a cover letter, and then there's some documents.
Even though it's
pursuant
sealed
to
for
your
his
request. I'll get
privacy,
that
it's
to-
redacted for his privacy, but it's a cover-up.
And then along with, on the back, will be that incident report. So that's being provided as well. And then the state, you'll get a copy of that incident report. I don't know if you want to.
I'm glad you were here
Copy
too,
of
Cy.
what Mr. Brooks was requesting, but at least that inmate communication form has been filed into the case. I believe it's documents the state could simply pull off of the electronic filing system in any event. And then lastly, I had marked, this is the exhibit 6 that I previously had
Exactly.
ordered struck. I just wanted to make a record that it's marked, it's in this envelope, it will be kept with the file for any potential use later on. I just hadn't made. a
That's the
record of
video
So
that
that's
no
there
one could
as
hear
well.
except for the
That
hard of hearing
does-
guy.
Cover all of my housekeeping issues with that, given the state's request or Attorney Opper's request to start late tomorrow, and frankly, given the late night tonight, we will start tomorrow at 9 a.m. Was that enough time for you?
Yes. I was actually gonna withdraw my request because we have another jam tomorrow in that we have a witness that we have to guarantee to get out of here by noon.
Seriously?
My request is perhaps, if the court's willing, we could start at 8:30 with the preliminary matters. We could still have the jury come in at 9, but if there's any preliminary matters, we could start with
I
Attorney
need to let them
Basie.
know. I told them 9:15 in my note that I
Oh,
gave to Mike. So
I
I don't
see.
know if we can still get a hold of them. We probably can.
Okay,
So maybe someone's gonna need to tell them quickly. So I
Okay.
need to stay here so I won't step off. So we can
Okay.
keep going, but
so if
9
we-
o'clock
That
it
poor
is.
jury. That poor jury.
You wanna start, how about we do 8:45?
have the
and
jury
then-
here at 8:45?
No, parties here at 8:45.
Parties here at 8:45 without
Jury by
me.
9.
Attorney Basie and Attorney Which will be here at 8:45. I'll be here at 9.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Then just, Mr. Brooks, those things were provided to you.
Value in terms of value these
That-
filings.
That's
and
that's meaningless. That's
just very briefly. so we can
gibberish.
Get out of here. Um,
very quickly. Let me bring up something I've already brought up dozens of times and have been
I
shot
have to
down.
raise this issue.
No, you don't. Is it in your Bible? Is
What
that
issue, Mr.
My
Brooks?
understanding, how can someone who's not an injured party testify on behalf of somebody who is an injured party
Mr. Brooks,
and it still be
I'm not
charged?
addressing this. It is a
There-
frivolous argument.
you don't
You
have
a
to be an
misunderstanding of
injured
the law.
party
We are in recess. I am leading
to
the bench.
testify.
Thank you, everyone. We're in recess.
You
That's
have
a
to be a
tactic agreement.
witness.
We're not-
Jeez. I mean, witnesses testify. You don't have to be an injured party to be a witness. Is he serious? Is he serious? Oh. And before any of us become injured parties, thank you for hanging out and rejoining after my technical difficulties. I'll see you bright and early tomorrow. I'm out. I'm done. Thanks again.